All right, it's going to be an impromptu X space. Is BTC going into a hard fork right now? According to Brett Banfe, it is in about 3 months. BSV fees are going up 100x, 100x sats. What does that do for the people in BSV and how it's going to affect business going forward? Is it going to actually make mining a lot more profitable on BSV, or is it going to completely stall adoption and affect the businesses who are transacting only in sats, where their price goes up 100x? So what's that going to do for things? What do people think about it? I want to get an actual like kind of a impromptu poll from people and get their feedback and love to have a discussion on that, kind of do a roundtable. So we're going to do that here in a minute, going live to a space. Stay tuned to the end, and we'll go ahead and make it on the record. All right, so I'll see you at the top and on the inside. This is Gavin Mehl, the ones, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. A little red button, hit the notification bells on the side. If you're watching this on YouTube, please, thank you. What's up, everybody? Good morning. This is going to be a X space here on the adoption of ultimately of Bitcoin and the freaking with the sea change moment video coming out from Brendan yesterday, recorded over there in the UK, London, for all the small little tiny peon people like myself who are just down here. We're on the bottom of the food chain. We're not elites. We're not very up there in the ivory towers. What does it mean for all of us regular everyday people that are just out there kicking ass and taking names? I mean, working hard. I mean, what does it mean for all this stuff? The 100x and sats on the BSV chain increase potentially. I mean, how does that affect things? This is something that is definitely in the consciousness right now. And is that totalitarian control? Can somebody just price fix everything, or is it actual economics and capitalism at its finest, where people can actually look at it and see, you know what, I'm going to charge this much because I can charge that much. That's my business. That's how capitalism works. And then also the potential hard fork for BTC that's incoming, and you got guys like Michael Saylor now who are completely, what they're doing is they're basically he's dumping all his BTC, 33,000 BTC, while he's posting him on a Titanic ship out there, or with a Titanic ship in the background on a meme, saying everybody hodl, 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 hold. I mean, SEC violations, FBI investigations, anybody? I mean, that looks very, when you're a public company and you're actually got shareholders in a public company and you're telling everybody, hold, guys, hold the line, while you're dumping in the background, and it's public and it's just all visible. Like, what type of what? I mean, I guess only somebody like who could lose $6 billion in a day and dump on all of his investors could do that. So, I mean, I guess it's just, if that's how you operate. But it is something that's a major securities problem. So the life for BTC is not looking good. I have people reaching out to me yesterday saying it's now a good time to buy Bitcoin. I'm like, and I'm concerned. I'm like, well, I don't think I recommend doing anything. I mean, I think I recommend investing in your education. That's what you need to buy. Buy something to invest in education and to educate yourself. Because if you are asking me for financial advice, you need education. I'm definitely not qualified to give you any sort of advice. So, um, it's kind of funny, but yeah, the first thing is get education. There's a lot of things happening, but I wanted to have this space today because we got these the stuff I've been reading with Rui and the Rui stuff with Rui de Silva. He posted about the 100x and Sats price, and then also the stuff that I saw, with the BTC hard fork, and he said, or a recap. So I did invite Brett up. Oh, I actually invited anybody who follows me, I think is how I did it, can just be a speaker. So that's how I think I said it. So if anybody else wants to join in as a speaker, feel free to request up. And then what I was thinking was that we do it as like, I host like mastermind calls on Sundays and Saturdays for like private membership associations. And so the way I usually do them, and I've been doing them for freaking 7 years, is like I'll do like a little opening, 2 to 3 minutes, and then go around and talk to people. If we have a full panel, I'll give like 2 minutes to people, and then open up, and then just we'll try to keep people from rambling on about like miscellaneous subjects that are just not relevant, and cutting them short if they go on way too long. And then, if it's really a flow and it's on point, we can keep going. But like in the beginning, we'll just kind of keep it short and keep it really interesting and go around the horn. So why don't we go over to you, Casey? Good morning.
Good afternoon here in Missouri, but good to hear from you. I'm excited for this conversation, and it's definitely one for debate. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. I'm going to post a video right now on it right now that I just shot. So I didn't record the space on X, so I'm going to do a recording on YouTube in the background, but just so we can get it on the record. But I do see my man Brett C. Banfe back from Texas. Looks like Dallas. Maybe he's back now. So I got the video coming out here with you. It's in the queue. It's already up, but I've got it done. I just got to get the thumbnail ready, and then I'll have that video posted, Brett, in a minute. I did post a short that kind of links to it. I did a show with Brett 2 days ago while he was in Dallas, and he announced that at the conference there, the BTC miners, they were all pulled in the room by we'll just say one of the guys in one of the influencers there, in BTC. And they said, everybody, who's mining core? And then Brett said, oh yeah, it was one guy raised his hand, named Greg. I don't know, some Greg guy. I'm not sure who he is, but and then 50, the rest of the room, half the room all said they're mining knots, which is like hard fork incoming right now. So Brett, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing good. Yeah, I was really amazed to see that being there at the Mining Disrupt. It gave me more confidence than any conference I've ever been to, that we are on the right path to success in BSV because really, the miners themselves, they don't care about ideology and small blocks versus big blocks. They just want to make money. The session that you were describing was called "Keep Your JPEGs Off My Hash Rate," and it went viral. So yeah, there was members of Jack Dorsey's team up there. Ocean, Luke Dash Jr. Was up there, and as well a few kind of people on the other side that didn't want ordinals, didn't want JPEGs, etc. And really what you see is that there's just this massive infighting still going on. Basically, I joined with Connor Murray as, representing the BSV Association. And, Connor's comments were, these exact same arguments that they were having, they are still having 6, 7 years ago. They're still having them today, and it's just, I can get into it a little more once we do our intros and stuff like that, but it was really invigorating for me to be there because at the end of the day, bullshit bullshit talks and money walks, or whatever, what's the saying. And I really feel that we need to convince them with the rubber meeting the road and actually starting to make them more money. So this is a perfect time to discuss that with the minor fee increase and all of that stuff. And I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. This is great. So, the minor fee, I just try to kind of put this up impromptu, so there's no real scheduling behind it. So I did try to invite a couple people that were commenting on the minor fee. So it'd be great to have them up there if they come in. I'm not recording the call, so they won't be able to listen to it later here. But yeah, so I mean, I wanted to open up, and all those people are invited to speak, and so this is like something that I don't have the answers on, and I want to hear what people have to say. I am going to record this, get it on YouTube, so people could at least listen to it again in the background. But it's important to hear each side of the argument. And let me just kind of frame it. One side says, well, I want to operate my business and I want to pay my business in sats. So if I want to build a business, each business, I'm going to charge one sat. And if they're going to cost 100 sats, now my business can't make money potentially because we were only charging one sat and we're going to make one sat profit. For example, this is like a micropayment business model. This could affect them. So this is where one side could be harmed, and this is a very viable economic point, saying, I'm going to scale my business and I'm only charging 1 or 2 sats or 3 sats, and the 100 sat price is going to price me out of the market. It's not fair. That's one side of the argument. The other side is, well, hey, miners are gonna they're capitalists. They're gonna make money, and if they're able to charge more in fees, they're gonna charge more in fees. It's capitalism. Now, so that's the other side. But then going back to it, then the other side's gonna say, well, then hey, is this just some sort of a dictator where one miner can say, I'm going to charge this and everybody's going to be able to have to pay it, or else? Is that how? That's the other side of the argument. So I think it's a very good a discussion to hear. But back to the miner side, they're saying, well, no, it's not dictators, because we're charging whatever we're going to charge, and if people are going to pay them, they're going to pay that. That's capitalism. So, I mean, it's totally a good topic to hear about, and it flows right into the BTC stuff, because with BTC becoming less profitable, like you said, Brett, at the conference, and how BTC is now basically splitting up or forking. They want a hard fork. Luke wants one side, and the other guys in the crowd want another side, and they want to split up into these other things. And credit to Scrypt, by the way. And I want to tap credit to myself, as well. A lot of people were hating on me and Scrypt when we were going to the BTC conferences and doing, promoting, enabling the opcodes, because I know that's not a popular thing to do, but look what's happening now. That's all from that. I mean, well, maybe not. I mean, maybe it's been stemming for the last 10 years, but I think so it's not all from that, but there's got to be some credit to the Scrypt stuff that he did, and all the talks he did on the OpCat. So I'm going to give my credit to him as well. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Casey?
Sorry, I was just messaging Satoshi and a couple other people on the back channels to get him in here.
Okay.
I am not really, clear on the economics of how this is all going to play out, but it does. I mean, at first glance, it seems like it would incentivize more miners to come and mine on BSV, which is something we want. Correct?
Well, it sure seems like it'd be more profitable. I guess my feedback would be like, if it's going to be more profitable, and they're looking at that coin dance chart, and the miners are not they're not chasing philosophy, they're not chasing religion. They're looking at, I have shareholders, I need to make money for my business. A lot of them are public companies. That's what they're looking at. They want to be profitable. And they say, well, it's a lot more profitable to mine over here. I have all this equipment. I don't have to change anything or spend any more money. Let me just mine this instead. And then what they can do is they also could say, well, I want to be paid, though, in BTC, because I like hodling BTC. And they say, that's fine. They can also get paid in BTC, or I think they can even get paid in Ethereum or other things if that's what they want. But they could mine the BSV if it's more profitable. So, I mean, Brett, did you want to comment on that? I know that's something that you have a lot of knowledge on.
Yeah. So this was one of my key takeaways from the conference. We went there and we spoke with a public, there's soon to be public mining company called Ionic, and they're about to do an IPO. And it suddenly just hit me. If this is a publicly traded company, they have a responsibility to their shareholders to maximize the profits. So we can just go to their board and say, hey, would you like to make more money for your shareholders? You can mine this chain, and assuming that we have the transaction volume, that's what building Terranode, et cetera, is all about. It's about enabling the miners to make the economic decision to mine the better version of Bitcoin, BSV, because it's more profitable to do so. But the profitability doesn't come at the expense of the users or at the expense of the privacy of the network, because now, the main talking points, and these are from BTC people, right? We understand these in the BSV space, what the problems with BTC are. We understand them as, we can enumerate on them. But, you hear this from hardcore BTC maxis that they don't like the way the direction is going with BTC, because basically what they're saying is that the consolidation of the block size, the block sizes, et cetera, is forcing the consolidation of the UTXO set. So now we all know you can't have, 10, 20 cent transactions, 30 cent dollar transactions, etc. You can't have these dust limits anymore. So, of course, if you can't have these dust limits, then you can't do what Bitcoin was innately capable of doing, which is to take a single payment, let's just say, $1,000 payment, and breaking that out into splitting the UTXOs. So it's 1,000 different UTXOs that all, where each of those has $1, or 10,000 which each have a dime, etc. And so the innate privacy components that Bitcoin always had from the beginning, those become lost when you consolidate the when you minimize the block sizes, because they can't get under those dust limits. And effectively what that does is it means that, and this is what this is what they want. They the biggest players want this. And we spoke to them. She can name names who was telling me that this is the vision that they want. But what they want is they just want all of the Bitcoin to be put into these centralized exchanges, and then no one actually exchanges or trades on chain anymore. He said, the person who said this to me, I can't remember his exact name, but I know he was the CEO of Abundant Mining Pool, which is in Portugal. It's in Oregon, Portland, Oregon. And yeah, he was saying, that he wants the use of the chain to be like something that grandchildren talk about their dad, or their grandfather. Like, my grandfather one time made a transaction on chain, etc. But really nothing actually happens on chain. It's like everything is happening on these abstract layers, like things like the Coinbase and on Kraken and etc. So but the problem is that basically that does the exact opposite of what Bitcoin was always meant to do, right? Instead of removing centralized operators, it introduces centralized operators, etc. So and so more and more became apparent that that really that the big block vision has been right all along. But now the fun part about going to an event like this is we don't just get to say, well, theoretically, when we get to these, throughput volumes where we can do millions of transactions per second, and the economic revenue will demand that a rational miner will come over to the chain where you make the most profit. We don't get to say, theoretically, that's going to be, a litmus point, or it's going to be a sea change moment, like, to use the term that you were using with Brendan's video coming out soon. Instead we get to say, this is actually public. You can go look at the code today. It's available. And so we saw many mouths just drop on the floor when we described what was going to happen. We know that the avenue of approaching these miners is in their pocket. We're gonna reach them not through ideology but through markets, and that's how Bitcoin was always envisioned to work. It's not something like where it's built on altruism, or we all want to say, oh, what great people are we that we're developing this this archaic monetary network where its number go up and it does nothing. It just rewards the earliest people. That's of course ridiculous. But the thing is that we're so early right now, and a lot of us that are listening in this space, it doesn't feel like we're early because, we've been, learning and researching and getting involved in this for years and years and years. So it doesn't feel early, but I can tell you we are extremely early right now. Because basically, once we actually get those transactions on chain, we see the use cases for things like machine-to-machine communications, validations of data sets through AI, et cetera. We see all of that, and we're no longer sort of like out in left field talking about this stuff, talking about the use cases of micropayments. This is now mainstream. We have, the head of the SWIFT network talking about how $130 trillion worth of assets are going to move over and be powered by blockchain within the next 5 years. So we've been right all along, but it's it's really gonna once we start to actually bootstrap that with these transactions on chain, and then it is more profitable to mine on BSV, then effectively we will force the hash power to come to us. And they will they will bow down to BSV because BSV is going to be the hand that feeds them. You know, they say don't bite the hand that feeds you. So they will come to us, and when the hash is on BSV, what is the use case for BTC? I mean, it will completely collapse, and it's just going to be the last guy out of the room gets caught holding the bag, and it will survive. Now, don't get me wrong, it will survive as like a hobby coin or something that, you know, someone says, hey, you know, like, look at this. Remember when BTC, everyone was thought that it would be worth something? You know, I still have one of those old coins just to remind myself of how retarded I was. Something like that. So it'll survive, but just as like the equivalent of fart coin or something like that. And the real economic engine will be powered by BSV. And that was what was clear to me by being there at the conference.
Yeah, it's like the collectibles of that I used to get these coins that were collectibles, and you know, when at the time I remember getting them when I was a kid, and they're like, oh, these are quarters or whatever that are collectible items. They're just a quarter, but it's a collectible, and it's sentimental because it's a more of a sentimental reason. And my grandmother gave it to me. It's in a thing somewhere because it's a family thing, but it has no economic value. 25 cents, I guess, but it doesn't have any economic value to it. You know, so yeah, I see that it definitely will be around, and they'll be able to still have sentimental value to BTC in the future. It'll definitely have that, at some point. And Greg will be remembered as a hero to all that. And one day, he'll be remembered, as his coin and his project that he did was so great. So, yeah, but I mean, I think it's great. It was a really good little intro there. I did. If anybody who's I'm following can automatically join as a speaker. Otherwise, I do see. Let's see, Crumbs. I see Binary. I don't know if you joined as a listener, you can't join as a speaker. So, Casey, if you want to invite people like Crumbs, I know he's been asking me to questions about the economic model on Bitcoin, and also binaries in there, Mitch. I see Ray C. I know him. I don't know if he wants to speak, or Vince. So, yeah, if anybody else, or even Ray, I see Ray as well. So, yeah, feel free to jump up and request. If you're not able to talk, then, no worries, just listen in. But so back to the fee structure, on this. And I'd love to hear both sides. I was hoping to get Scott in, so I could get Scott on one side, get Rui on the other side, and I think it was somebody else. Either way, there's both sides. I'd love to have a live, friendly, respectful, peaceful position on each side, and everybody tell why their side is right and the other side is wrong. And I think we have the professional people here that can do that without making it a personal attack. I really do. And that's what I wanted to have this for, was to kind of like open the floor up for that, for the discussion. Because I've seen a lot of people are commenting back and forth on some of those threads. So, but yeah, let me just kind of phrase the argument again. That would be like, one side, the sats go up 100x. Now, my question would be, who makes the decision to mark up sats 100x? Because that does seem a little like, how would that be? I guess one miner could do that. I guess that would be one, or I guess one node operator. Node operators and miners are the same, apparently. So I guess one node operator could say, I'm going to charge 100x in sats now. And then another one could say, well, no, I'm going to charge 99. That's how I see it. And then another one could say, I'm going to charge 90. I'm going to charge I'm going to undercut everybody and only charge this. That seems to be how it would go. I don't see any way in the protocol for a unilateral change in the fee structure to happen. But am I wrong about that, Brett? Do you know, is there a way that a unilateral fee structure could be implemented and say everybody must charge this amount? Is that possible?
No, I don't think so. But yeah, I think it would just be because anyone can broadcast any transaction, and then it's up to miners to accept it or not accept it. So yeah, you could continue to just broadcast things at a lower fee rate, and people do that. So even now, there's a generally accepted, or not now, but even prior to this recent change, which I think the change starts tomorrow anyway. So, but so maybe it is correct to say even now, but even in the time when we were talking about one sat per kilobyte, there were people like who successfully mined 0 sat per kilobyte, transactions, and they're just typically ignored. Sometimes they get broadcast by accident. And, I think there was a famous example of Connor Murray from, the BSV Association working on something. And he had some customers with his old product, which was sort of based on the concept of like, leaving a review for a restaurant you went to. But the verified reviews, have some satoshis attached to them, and potentially the restaurant, it was called Brightview, Brightvue, Brightview. And yeah, he had accidentally broadcast a bunch of transactions that had 0 fees, and he reached out to Gorilla Pool and just said, hey, like, I'm sort of stuck, like, I need these to be mined, but I didn't broadcast them with no fees on purpose. It was an accident how I did it. But now, some other data critical components of my, infrastructure depend on these being mined. And, would you do me a favor? And the Gorilla Pool team just said, yeah, sure. We typically don't want to mine stuff for free, but we'll do it for you. Just because, you reach out, that's the value of being in a small world network. So, I think there's a little bit of hand wringing about it because, there, and even Gorilla Pool came out pretty recently and just said, hey, we're always willing to work with you. Like the apes and the humans don't always agree on what the fee policy should be. That being said, like some fee, standard fee policy for people that you've never, that you have no experience with, a base rate for like for the network is totally fine to have, but as you build that warm, Gavin, you always call it relationship capital. As you build the relationship capital that actually gets you closer to the center of the network and say, hey, I understand that the typical fee is XYZ, but here's the reason why it's in your long-term interest, Gorilla Pool, to be mining these for what would be considered lower than normal, et cetera, right? And if you can make the compelling use case why, then that's how business works, right? So I think that that it should be, that the previous fee, the 1 sat per kilobyte, was artificially low, was artificially set lower than it probably should have been by Taal in an effort to say, hey, we'll continue to mine at a loss as a costly signal to how much we believe in this long-term vision of BSV. And now they're sort of saying, okay, well, now we are interested in sort of starting to mark the pricing a little bit more at a fair market value for execution of script validation and all that stuff. And the other thing I'll say about this too, and I'm not an expert, especially not on technical matters or anything, but there was some comments from Brandon Bryant, which he has a lot of really valuable input about this as well. And he mentioned that just having the fee be so low actually created some problems for large scale operations because the lack of the mining at a loss meant that you would get a less reliable product sometimes, perhaps. Whereas like anything, when you get what you pay for, so if you pay for basically nothing, sometimes you don't have an incentive there to actually fulfill, and so there can be some good sides to an increase as well. But yeah, I see Crumbs up, so
yeah.
just
Let me
sort
go
of
to
pass that
Crumbs in a
along.
second, Brett. I'll go back to you, Vince, in what just a moment, Vincent. So Crumbs, Vincent. Anybody else? Yeah, thanks for raising your hand. So I'll go. We got Binary, Mitch, and also John up on the stage. We'll go to you guys too. But first, let me just go to the costly signal thing because I have skin in the game on the mining side. All right, so I do have experience and skin in the game on this, and it's it's a costly signal, and I actually I operated for about a year, and and it was too costly of a signal for me to continue doing that because it was, while the rewards were coming in, it was something that just couldn't. I just couldn't stomach, And I mean, if you're a whale, maybe I guess the costly signal is worth it, and you're going to keep on mining at a loss over X amount of years. But for about a year for me, it was the numismatic coins, the rare virgin coins were, yeah, those are real valuable. I could totally see that in the long term, and that's why I personally had skin in the game. It's like, I'm going to keep doing that, and I'm still totally wide open to keep doing that. But I really want to see. I had to put things on hold until there was some sort of a potential profitability again coming up, until it makes some sense, at least economically, because I'm not some huge whale like whatever Taal or something that maybe they can afford to do keep losing money every single month and quarter, and that's no big deal for them. But yeah, but I mean, most just regular average people, I don't think can. So yeah, the costly signal though is amazing to see it. The companies like Gorilla Pool and Taal doing it is very valuable. So let's go to you, Vincent Crumbs. Vincent, hands up. Okay. Can you hear him, Casey?
No, I didn't.
Okay, Vincent, you want to try adjust? Looks like if you want to just drop back down and come back up, that might fix it. And then when you jump in, just join as a speaker. I just followed you, so you can join as a speaker automatically. And then hopefully your mic will fix. So, Mitch, did you want to? I know your hand's not up, but do you want to chime in on this? And if you feel free to, or okay.
Yeah.
Good
Can you
morning,
hear me?
buddy. Yeah.
Hey, morning. Uh, yeah, I don't really. I mean, I saw the email that went out, and there was a lot of different opinions. From my perspective, it's like, hey, uh, quit sending bullshit to the chain that we don't need on the chain. And from a developer perspective, you've got two things that you got to consider, right? You need to know exactly what you're putting on chain and why, because at 1 sat per kilobyte you can put anything you want, but there's databases you know aren't the enemy here, right? Like, we don't have to have everything on chain. We have to have specific things on chain so that we can validate, and we can do payments and different things. So from an application developer side, they're telling us, hey, be a little bit more careful about what you're putting on chain. Make sure it's relevant. Make sure it's needed for your application. And so it puts a constraint on us, which is good. It's a good thing. It makes us better. It makes our applications more efficient. It makes the user experience better. Um, and then from their perspective, it also incentivizes the most efficient smart contract development, right? If I don't want to speak badly about script, but the reality is that script creates these big loops, because when you compile down from uh, TypeScript into opcodes, right? It's not a one to one. Like, the way that Bitcoin script works is almost completely in a whole nother reality to what TypeScript is doing. And so in order to get that, the script compiler and any compiler that is built in the future, it doesn't really matter what language is coming down from, it's going to be really difficult to get efficient smart contracts. And so you have to, from a developer perspective, you got to really look into, if I got to put stuff on chain, I have to be sure that it's exactly what it needs to be and it's the most efficient. And that creates very, very high reliability smart contracts, because they only have exactly what they need um, to work. And so that is, I think that's the signal that's being sent. And I'm reading it and I'm adjusting, and I think that that's what everyone's going to have to do.
Nice. Thank you, Mitch. Definitely valuable insight here on what you're sharing in the way of the how the signal is like, well, don't put just, I guess, transactions that are not valuable on the chain is potentially a signal. And that seems to be one side of the argument. I'm open to hearing what, I mean, either way. I mean, this is a open forum. I want to hear what if anybody has you want us to share why it's a bad idea too, I'm totally open to hearing that. I see Vincent's got his hand up. Casey, do you see him on the stage? I don't see him in there yet, but if you do, or you want to approve him to speak, feel free to. Do you? I don't know. My thing might not be refreshing. So, but who
I
do we?
invited him, but I don't see him up there yet.
Okay. So, okay. What about you, John? Looks like we got you up here, buddy. Good morning.
Hey guys, hope everyone's doing good. For me as a developer, I just want predictable fees, right? Actually, no, I don't want it, right? I need predictable fees. So, um, whatever we got to do to set it there, right, and make them predictable, let's do that, right? Because I think there are boundless, there's a boundless domain of use cases that we can, do on this, chain. But it's also a fact too that like it increases stuff. We just increase it by 100x. I really don't think that limits us right now. I don't think it's honestly a big deal. Like myself, it did cause me to do some like introspection on the scripts that I wrote. I was able to reduce them like by a lot, like 20x. So I think that was probably good to do. But yeah, let's get those fees predictable, and whatever they are, right? So we can know what use cases are good to build and how much it'll cost from like an infrastructure and a developer and a business perspective. And let's get out and keep building, spreading the word. I think progress lately has been awesome. It's just been so good to see. I haven't been so excited about us like a ecosystem before. It's been super fun. So that's my opinion. If anyone cares, but yeah.
Yeah, great job, John. We're really excited about what you have to share as well. And thanks for sharing your insight, man. I really appreciate it and what you're doing there. And I'd love
Thank
to
you.
hear more about the Xanadu project when you guys get more information on it. So when you guys get going. So let me go over to Vincent Crumbs. Vincent, you got your hand up, buddy. Good morning.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I had to reinstall the X app apparently. Anyway, um, I just want to say,
Try to come a little
firstly,
closer to your mic if you could.
yeah. Okay, is this better?
Continue.
Okay. I want to start out with a challenge to any of the devs. I think it would be really useful for anyone if there's a page where you can just have a slider. You can set a Satoshi per byte amount, for example, by default 100 or 1. And then you can also fill in your amount of transactions you expect to make per month, and then it shows you in the dollar amount how much it would cost you at a certain amount of Satoshi per byte. And you can should also be able to set the amount of basically the transaction size, the amount of bytes on average you expect to spend per transaction if you use like
If you
non-typical transactions, and then you can basically see what is the actual cost in terms of dollars at a different at a amount of satoshis per byte that you just configure yourself. So I think that could be useful to have a tool like that, because then we can talk about what would typical usage cost for a developer at various amounts of miner fees. Having said that, I think what I see happening with Taal saying like, hey, we're gonna not mine transactions under 100 satoshis per byte is basically they are basically setting the terms for themselves. So it's like a fee policy. And I think this is essentially a natural part of the process of Bitcoin. It's I think what Dr. Wright has called a Stackelberg game, or rather, mining is a multi-leader, multi-follower Stackelberg game, also called Stackelberg competition, and that is a game from game theory where basically there are bigger players in the market, smaller players in the market, and the bigger players look at what the smaller players do, and the smaller players look at what the bigger players do. Another example would be, for example, say Amazon decides to massively invest in drone delivery. That will lead smaller e-commerce and delivery companies to also reassess how much they want to invest in drone delivery, and that will change the kind of the nature of the market itself in terms of like how much drone delivery is available, what the cost is of drone delivery versus typical delivery. And I think that's essentially the same as what's happening with Taal declaring a minimum a price for transactions to get mined. Now the ball is in the court of Gorilla Pool and other pools to say like, okay, well actually, you guys are willing to leave money on the table. We will actually mine transactions that are, only paying 50 Satoshis a byte or whatever. And so this will lead to miner specialization. It will also lead to increased competition. Essentially, Taal is saying, we're leaving money on the table, come and get it. And some other pools, I think this will basically attract hash also onto the BSV chain, which is probably a good thing. And there's a shifting equilibrium as the price of a unit of BSV goes up or down. That inflection point of what is profitable for miners in terms of fee rate also changes. So all these things play together, right? The demand for block space, the Satoshi per byte price, the price of a coin, of a full BSV, and then the cost of hardware, storage, throughput, electricity, all that stuff. These things, they feed into a kind of unstable equilibrium that shifts and towards lower fees and higher volume as the network gets more use. So we're still in a very early phase of that network. So what that current equilibrium is, where miners are able to stay profitable at a fee rate that enables application developers also to be profitable with their use cases. Like, I don't know where that is, if that's around 100 Satoshis per byte or lower or higher, but I think ultimately the market will develop on both the application layer as well as on the infrastructure layer, such that certain use cases are possible at certain fee structures, and that's a natural process basically. So I don't see any problem with this, but I would love to be told why I'm wrong, or if there's any devs that are really concerned about this, I would love you to kind of educate me why I'm wrong.
Thank you very much, Crumbs, Vincent, and thanks for the rare Pepe meme cards that you gave me in person there in the London blockchain event there at the Bitcoin Palace. I got those, and those are freaking valuable, man. I appreciate it very, very much. So check Crumbs out on his X account, Shadley Vision, for more information. So Shadowley Vision. Now, just to comment back on what you said, you just basically said some new information that I didn't know, was that it was Taal that did this. So that is their business. And I know they used to be a public company. I don't think they are anymore, but they were a public company in Canada, and they absolutely have shareholders they've got to account to. So if they're not profitable, they probably had a board meeting at some point and said, "Hey, our shareholders are complaining. We need to make more money, and we're not making any. So we need to do something." So that's their decision, and that is their really out of our control. So it sounds like that's what you just said, Vincent. I didn't know that, and that makes complete sense to me. Where a company can make a business decision. Now, Gorilla Pool, on the other hand, they're like, no, screw it. We're gonna just keep doing smaller transactions, and it opens up specialized mining or some other miner. They can just do the smaller transactions, but not Taal. Taal won't do it anymore. Fine. So I don't see how that's going to change things, but make more of a capitalistic environment. So. And I'd love to hear if anybody has any response to Vincent on why it's a bad idea. Totally not going to interrupt you. I want to hear what your position is. And this is about free speech. Mitch, go ahead.
Yeah, Well, Vincent's exactly right, but I can clarify just a little bit more. Like, Gorilla Pool isn't keeping its fees. From what I read, Gorilla Pool isn't keeping its fees at one sat. It's just saying, hey, if you've got an important, if you've got a transaction that you need to get on the chain, and the guys that are mining, the majority of the blocks aren't accepting one sat, then raise the fees and get it on the chain. If you don't, then we'll still eventually get it time stamped, but we're doing it every 5-10 blocks, so you're gonna have to wait. If you've got a mission critical thing, you've got to broadcast to an overlay, you've got to do you're sending a share, you're sending an escrow, like something that's really important, versus like, oh, I just sent a post, or I sent a task on a to-do app, right? That's not mission critical. It's going to get logged eventually. And so application developers just have to sort of figure out how to structure their applications so that the stuff that needs to go is on there, and the stuff that isn't, maybe it's just on a database, maybe it's not, maybe it's one sat, and it'll eventually get mined and time stamped. It comes down to how we design it, at the application side, and what the users are actually wanting, from a blockchain application, right? Not everything has to be on chain. That's not a requirement for the majority of blockchain applications. Like if I go build we're building a team EMS, so enterprise management system, which is basically the to-do app that you can go test, but it's got uh, overlay encryption and admin suites and all these different things that you can manage an entire team of developers on top of it. Like, and we're going through the process of like, okay, how critical is a task, being on chain? Well, I don't know. We'll have to see what the market says. If we bring this to people and they're willing to pay whatever they need to pay to get it on chain as fast as they can, then we'll structure the application that way. If it's okay to just have it in a database that's encrypted with your keys, and you're using the curve point package that Babbage released, then maybe there's some ways that we can build around it so that we're not spending tons of satoshis to get a task that may get resolved in the next 2 hours on chain. You know what I mean? Like, that's the sort of things that we need to be looking at. And so, Taal's going to set its practices, Gorilla Pool's going to set its practices, and then you, as the application developer, has to come in and say, okay, this is why our users want the blockchain in the first place. Let's make sure that these mission critical things are timestamped, because that's the value, and provide that value.
Yep. Right on, dude. Oh, go ahead, Brett. Over to you.
Yeah. Mitch is my go-to on this topic because it relates with energy, but there is a baseline amount of energy that any amount of compute implies. And so I think, we're talking about the price to mine a transaction, but really we're talking about, like, go below that layer for a second and really just think about it, the price to actually for the energy that it requires to mine that transaction. And even if you set aside for the second the price, the cost of the energy to look for the proof of work that's required to attach to the block that you eventually find, let's just say. But if you just look at the granular level of how much actual energy it takes to compute 100 kilobytes of data, and I don't think that that's an extremely abstract concept. I've never really considered it. I don't think there's probably that much data on that. Maybe Mitch knows, because that's obviously his area of expertise. But what I think this ultimately ends up doing is it creates a further and further and further granularization of the energy layers that are involved. And this is one of the things that Terranode introduces with their concept of taking the traditional node structure as a monolithic structure, where basically all of the functions and processes are all performed by the same, basically, like, monolithic entity. and then compartmentalizing that out. So you have the microservices model where the hashing itself can be done by one hash specific specialist, and then the script validation can be done by one script validation specialist, etc. And so basically, when we think of the energy, we oftentimes just think of the hashing itself. But what we're going to see as we break these various different components out, we're going to see that it's like an equation, right? You take the cost, just like any supply chain or something like that. It's not just how much does it cost for the fuel to drive it from Boulder to Dallas, Texas, or something like that. It's also how much energy does it cost to manufacture the product? How much energy is it to load the product into the back of a truck and then to transport it, et cetera, right? You have to add all of these costs up before you determine what the actual potential margin is for that product, right? And so we're sort of seeing the beginning phases of that, where right now we don't have as much granular data as probably we would like to have. So we see these like big sort of like ballpark, like, okay, well, we'll try out one sat per kilobyte. Okay, that didn't work, let's try 100 sats per kilobyte, right? But just like anything, as we specialize and compute this data and granularize it, we're going to see, oh, actually, we can rely, like John was saying, we can reliably expect that the hash that's going to be required at this rate of hash on the network, which is unpredictable because it's an unbounded rate, right? So that can obviously change as more transactions come on chain. But maybe like across a 30-day period, we can expect approximately this much hash, or a 14-day period with the difficulty adjustment algorithm, et cetera, plus this much compute power, et cetera. And ultimately, this is what's required, I think, in order to build. I always go back to that vision of Adam Smith with the baker and the candlestick maker, right? Because they had to figure all that out themselves, right? When it was like, well, shoot, how much wax is a loaf of bread worth? I don't know, so money becomes like an abstract mechanism where we can figure, okay, well, I can buy this much wax and I need to eat this many loaves of bread, so I can make like a rough equivalent there. And what we're seeing with the emergence of this new model with that Bitcoin introduced, but not just Bitcoin sitting on a shelf and hoping that number goes up, but really the Bitcoin as sort of like Mitch, as as Project Babbage, etc., have shown us, as John has shown us, where it's actually what can it do, that we actually see that this will become a more and more granular level. And what Mitch has always gone back to is that ultimately this will be how all energy gets priced. And I think that we're seeing sort of the beginning phases of that price discovery of energy itself, especially across this paradigm.
Yeah, brilliant, Brett. We are. That's exactly a very good point. And just to simplify it down, we're talking about, let's see, it going from 6 zeros, point, and then 6 zeros to point, and then 4 zeros. That's the difference. So it's not noticeable. I guess we wouldn't. As a consumer, personally, I would never. I don't think I would notice it, and I don't see how I would. But I don't see how I would notice that. But maybe there's a point of saying that. Well, yeah, I would know. You would notice that, and I could see the people that are just charging sats on a business. That would make sense to me. Like maybe it's going to affect tree chat. That would be a place that could affect tree chat. So I mean, dude, I'm in no way saying that, oh, this is a great idea. I just want to know. I want to hear why it's not a great idea too. If anybody has that side of the argument, does anybody want to comment on why this is a bad idea? Why this is a terribly unfair or wrong or dangerous idea? Does anybody have that? I don't know. Vincent, is your hand up?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea, but I wanted to say something to people that might think it's a bad idea. If you're seriously concerned about this, you can think of a mining pool basically just like a cloud, storage provider, right? So, with an SLA. So you can make bespoke contracts with pools. You can say, okay, I want to make a agreement for the next year that actually I want to pay this much Satoshi per byte, and I want to freeze that fee rate for this type of transactions and pay ahead. You can make all those deals, and also pay with another currency than BSV itself, right? Of course, the actual transactions will be paid in BSV, but you can pay extra in another currency to basically agree on a custom bespoke agreement. So what Taal has said basically is that this is our public offering, you know, but you can make private deals, and that is the nature of Bitcoin. It's a capitalist system. So you can, and another, I think, helpful maybe metaphor is that, a company like FedEx ships, I think they ship all the products for Apple to like the Apple stores. And from what I know, they do that at a loss. So FedEx actually loses money on shipping Apple stuff. But by Apple having continuous demand for space in their trucks and their planes, they have this continuous excess capacity that they then sell for profit to retail. So what I'm trying to say is that if you can make a bulk deal, you'll get a better rate. Like Apple's doing with FedEx, and yeah, so you can try to make a bulk deal with other app developers and approach a pool. You can make bespoke agreements with pools. Those are the tools that are available to you as an app developer. And other than that, you don't really have any control over what a pool does, other than make the choice to choose what type of transactions your application makes, and how you're going to pass that cost on to your customers.
Nice.
Well, sorry guys, hey, just wanted to jump in.
Babbage, welcome, buddy. Good to see you, Ty.
Yeah, so just listening in here, and most of what everybody said aligns with the principles of the network, at least as I understand them. Except this idea of private arrangements paid in other currencies, because Section 5 clearly says that transactions are broadcast to all nodes. So to the extent that a transaction is to be mined in a block, and to the extent that in the future we implement things like multicast or whatever, we need to broadcast all of our transactions to all nodes. Or there can't be any fear or favor in the way that transactions are distributed to nodes, in that they hide or something like that. So that's the problem that I have with the idea that you can just pay in fiat or whatever, and then essentially zero out your fee or something.
That's not what I meant. You would still pay a Satoshi per byte fee for your transaction, but you can pay on top of that in anything, gold or silver or whatever, Pokemon cards to whatever the pool that you're a pool of choice that you want to make an SLA with will accept this additional payment, and that way you can basically have a sort of SLA agreement where they will give you priority boarding on the block templates that they create whenever you make transactions. There's nothing that prevents you to making these kind of bespoke deals, right? Just like you have bespoke SLAs between corporations, and that are different from retail offerings.
Sure. I mean, as long as we're not broadcasting only to that provider. I think what we can't deny the network is the opportunity to include a transaction at the fee that it was sent out at, right? The moment you start colluding with a transaction processor, you get into sort of the Bitcoin equivalent of anti-competitive or antitrust problems, and have to avoid that, is all I'm saying.
Ty, respectfully, I would disagree. I mean, I really have a lot of respect for all the stuff you're doing, but I think this is a feature. It's not a bug. I think it's.
So what does Section 5 of the white paper say at the very beginning, right, of Section 5? Transactions are broadcast to all nodes. All nodes. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
So can someone help me simplify what exactly the debate is there? You know, I read the white paper, but can someone help simplify that for me? What, maybe Brett, or can you help frame the two sides? Or
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. So, yeah. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of a in real life equivalent or something, but basically, it's just that that ties talking about the white paper being sort of like the source of truth that we should be going back to, and saying that part of the obligation to be in line with the the direction that the network is going is that transactions get broadcast to all nodes. That's kind of like one of the conditions that Ty's using as like a primitive, and then that is in some ways in a little bit in conflict with the idea that Vincent is describing, which is that there could be preference. For example, if I was broadcasting transactions, let's just say that I didn't want my transactions to be mined by certain pools or something. So I never broadcast those transactions to those pools, but instead I send them directly only to the pool that I want to mine those transactions. And so that's theoretically what happens when someone is trying to like build an attacker chain or something, right? They would not saying that the only way to apply what Vincent's talking about would be in an attack, because I don't necessarily think that's the case, but in the case where someone was trying to like double spend coins, then they might broadcast certain coins, certain transactions to the chain, and then in secret they have other transactions that they don't broadcast to the chain. But then all of a sudden they find a block, maybe even they find 4 or 5 blocks, and then they say, "Hey guys, check this out." But that what Ty is saying is that there's some elements of that that become anti-competitive, because basically you're trying to exclude information until such a point as you've discovered it. And the entire point is that on a public blockchain, all information should be made public as quickly as possible, there to take advantage of the fact that basically it's a competitive market. So everyone's going to be competing to solve the same to build the same blocks, etc. So yeah, I can see some cases for both of those, and I have some of my thoughts on that, but I don't necessarily need to go into those right now. I'll sort of hear what other people think about that.
Okay, so John, 1 second. Let me go to you in just a moment. But before I do, it looks like Crypto Kate. I saw her. I don't know if she want to invite her up there, Casey. I saw she's new and she was talking with Dr. Wright about some interesting things. And it sounds like she's an investigative journalist and just kind of had a lot of experience in the mainstream media. And now she looks to me like from what I watched, is she's actually seeking the truth. And not just a paid shill, because most journalists are just paid shills. I come from I know, because I get offered and bribed things all the time. Every day I'm bribed, every single day. All right, I hope you guys know that. Every day I get bribed and offers for different things. So it takes a lot of courage to not take those bribes for whatever you're to stand up for the truth, and not go to promoting small blocks and BTC is the best and all these things. I mean, it does take a lot of courage, because you could stay poor, and that's the whole argument. They say, well, you're going to stay poor forever, enjoy being poor. So yeah, but if she wants to come up, I'd love to hear what her perspective is, if she's open to actually exploring the truth. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but just learning and growing is the key, and finding and investigating. So, but yeah, John, over to you, buddy.
Thank you, Gavin. To just build on top of what Ty and Brett were talking about, you know, I I think something good to think too is like, what does happen if transactions are not broadcasted to all nodes? Do issues arise when that happens, right? Does it increase the chance of like orphan chains, right? I did just look at the white paper, and it does, say that new transactions are broadcast to all nodes, and it even talks about how, if two different nodes get a block at the very same time, right? That could cause some issues, and maybe you could mess up like the next block construction possibly, right? At the same time, right now the way the stack works is, wallets broadcast these transactions. They usually construct a transaction with a fee in mind. But is it possible that certain wallets could get better deals for fees than other wallets, right? So that kind of gives people an advantage, and something to think about. And two, it's like if there's transactions in the pool, like are the miners going to be leaving profit on the table, right? Like that's something very interesting to me, and something I'll be looking at tomorrow to see if that's happening, because um, that's like crazy, I think, right? Like why you could make more money by doing something and you're not doing that. So we'll see what happens, right? I think all we can do as users and developers is broadcast transactions and see if they get accepted into a block. And um, I'm not a miner, I have no decision on fees, but um, we'll broadcast them as low as we can and could get them in the block. But it'll be interesting. It's just some fun game theory, right?
Yeah, for sure. This is brilliant. Okay, let's go over to a new speaker here, Crypto Kate. Looks like you're a former Fox TV reporter turned crypto Web3 reporter. Yes, this is really me. Good to have you.
Hi, Gavin. Hi, everyone. Right. So, my background is in TV journalism. I grew up in a family of journalists who worked at ABC News. I've worked for Fox News as a production assistant, Fox TV stations as on air talent, and a lot of small other stations around the country. Now, I started investigating this about two months ago, and I told Casey this. So I am a newcomer, but the I started asking a lot of questions. Well, I should say first, how I got into it was a group funded by Cardano hired me freelance to be on-air talent at a convention, and that was fine. I did do it. But the whole time with my background, I was sort of pacing around, sort of trying to get answers on, you know, mainly how is this decentralized? And I couldn't find anyone who could really explain that in a way that was digestible. And I tried as hard as I possibly could. So I've kept going to conventions and continued to ask this question, and that's what led me to BSV and this particular community. I see um, a high level of integrity here, and I got the opportunity to speak with Dr. Craig Wright last night, and I'm just wondering if anyone would like to know what we spoke about.
Getting a lot of
Yes,
100% in
definitely.
the
That'd
crowd.
be
So,
great.
floor's yours. We'd love to hear what you have to say, Kate.
Okay, so well, I hope he'll forgive me because when I asked to speak with him, I suggested off the record, and um, he said I will speak with you. I have no problem with that, and I was quite surprised. But I was directed towards him when I finally met a little context before I get into the conversation. I met Kurt Wuckert Jr. at a recent convention, and he was the only person who would speak to me about the reality of the situation, about the reality of that this is basically Wall Street too. And so I was incredibly intrigued. And he also told me that it's pretty clear that the identity of the original, the person who spearheaded the Bitcoin project was pretty easy to figure out if you were looking for that answer and you weren't trying to block the truth. So anyway, I asked to speak with Dr. Craig off the record. He didn't seem to care. I mean, he didn't insist off the record or anything like that. However, I did say it. So I hope he'll forgive me for sharing some of the information that we discussed. But I'll just say this. First of all, it seems that he's really thriving. I was just expecting like a text exchange sort of situation with him, but he was willing to do a video call. He's seeming very healthy. He's seeming quite balanced, which I was surprised by, considering, how angry I would be if I were in his situation. And I have investigated the trials at length at this point. I've spoken to multiple people who were there, I've spoken with industry experts, and I've just looked at the evidence and come to my own conclusion based on my standards. But back to his disposition, he's seeming honestly incredibly balanced, not angry. His tweets to some may come off that way. You have people attacking him constantly. I've had people attacking me constantly, and I've only figured this out, in the past 2 weeks or so. And the reality of the situation is that this has been taken over by, corporate interests, financial interests, major players, and it's going to be a difficult war to fight. But here's some stuff that you guys may be of particular interest to you guys in the BSV community. And it may not be news to you, but he is working on some incredible stuff that's coming. I mean, he's not standing down. He's not beaten down. He's scaling this thing up. He's not letting go of his original vision. And I just think that that's something that you guys should hear. We talked for about over an hour, and he, really inspired me. We did not, he has no concern about saying he's Satoshi Nakamoto. I would be furious if I was him. He's focused on his work. He's focused on scaling this up. And if there's anyone that can do it, in my perhaps novice opinion, I think it's him. Now, I mean, maybe someone else can speak to what you've heard is coming from him, and if not, I can give more insight into our conversation. If anyone else would like to jump in, what are you excited about that's coming?
I mean, well, let me just jump in. Yeah, thank you very much, Kate, for jumping in. And one of the things you're going to notice that right off the bat is like we, and me particularly, I can speak for myself, but like are all about free speech. So that's my number one reason why I'm even here is because of freedom, and freedom starts with speech. It's all about speech. That's why it's under the First Amendment. And it's all the First Amendment only has a Second Amendment only has any rights because of the first. I mean, it's like so we. That's the first thing. We never censor, and I never personal attack anybody. And I don't think anybody in this group either does. And we'd love to hear debates. And we actually, Dr. Wright been wide open to hosting a space or a debate with Dr. Wright and anybody in Bitcoin Core. This has been an ongoing open-ended challenge for the last, I don't know, couple of years now, that anybody from BTC Core is open to debating Dr. Wright. It's an open-ended challenge, and not one person has ever been willing to take the challenge. Not one. I don't know why. I genuinely don't have an answer why, other than they're just scared. But they won't do it. They won't debate Dr. Wright. They won't debate Kurt. Either way, this is another guy you met. They won't debate him. So yeah, this is really great to hear from a new person. We had Liz Croak. I had Liz Crokin on a few times. She's also a journalist who's been investigating things, really trying to look into things, but not specifically the Bitcoin space, but a little bit looking at the Bitcoin space. So, but yeah, it's good to hear from somebody who's really trying to figure out the truth. And I'm not going to give you the answers of what the truth are. It's all about doing your own research like you're doing, and you'll find the truth in seeking it. But if you're looking for the COPA stuff and the trial, that would be my expertise, is the COPA, and all the legal side, whether it's COPA case or the even the Kleiman case. Those two are definitely the COPA. I would be one of the leading industry experts on that, and then Kleiman would be definitely an expert on that. I didn't report on Kleiman every day, but I followed it, read most of the briefings and dockets. So. So yeah, over to anybody else who wants to comment back, or back to you, Kate. It looks like you're still unmuted. So.
Yeah, no, so what I'm seeing, Gavin, is that a lot of people have been, questioning me on, well, if the court ruled against him, then that's that. And I'll tell you, as in my career as a mass media journalist, we're not allowed to report beyond the court ruling. So whatever the court ruling is stands, and you can't, as a journalist, say, hey, why don't we go back and dissect the trial and actually look at all the testimonies and make and say, hey, maybe the ruling was wrong. And the reason why is because your editor and the institution you're working for is fears legal action. Now, this is something that's sort of uh, not as relevant today, because mass media is dissembling itself from within. They can't compete with YouTube. They're being blocked. Back to your point on the First Amendment, Gavin, from just broadcasting or writing about the truth in general. I'm sure there's a lot of different factors that we all know about that have led to that. But yeah, it's being dismantled from within. But here's the reality. I think a lot of people, when they look at the situation with Dr. Craig, they're going to look it up. They're going to say, okay, he submitted fraudulent documents. He wanted to look like he was the founder of Bitcoin, and he was proven a fraud, and they're not looking more closely at the trial, what happened there. And back to another point I was making earlier, if this is exciting for anyone else here, my understanding from my conversation with Dr. Craig is that he is going to be rebuilding Bitcoin over and over again, and he is going to be fighting for his original vision. I've said this before. Even if he goes bankrupt, I mean, from billionaire to bankrupt, he noted, and this is something I didn't know, Thomas Edison went bankrupt 3 times. He's not going to stop. Now, I'm not so sure. I didn't get into this with him if this applies to the BSV chain, but he told me he's putting about $30 million a month into scaling this up, making it faster, keeping it decentralized. Was it BSV or is it another project? That's something I'm not
He's
sure about. Maybe someone else can jump in
so
on that.
Kate, did you just say that he said Craig Wright? Craig is putting in $30 million of his own money a month. Is that what you're saying he told you?
Well, you know what? Again, I suggested off the record. He didn't have an opinion about it either way, but yes, he did tell me that.
He said that his own money, he's putting $30 million a month. Because we know that somebody's spending a shitload of money. To be honest, we don't actually know who's funding the Terranode development team. And I don't know if you're familiar with Terranode yet, but that's probably what he's referring to, which is
Yeah, we did discuss it.
okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I mean that was my understanding. That's what he told me. He said his goal is like Terranode 1 million transactions a section. It's going to cost it's costing $30 million a month at least. We're talking about petabytes worth of data here, and his conviction really, and listen, words are words, so you can't verify anything anyone's saying, but that is what he told me.
well, we
And
can verify someone's funding it. We
mm,
do know that. We just don't know who. We don't have any verification of who. And so that is the first time. That's breaking news right here because we always thought that it was maybe the Air Group, but again, that we're just speculating. We don't know who's funding the Terranode operation because yeah, it makes sense. AWS is going to have fees of about 2 million a month just on AWS fees minimum, plus whatever else. So 30 million seems like a realistic number.
well, I'll tell you this, Gavin. So when he talked about scaling it to that number, uh, he didn't you can hopefully track the money in most situations unless it's like very well hidden, but what he told me is that's what he's doing. And then he mentioned shortly after that, if it makes him if he goes bankrupt doing it, he doesn't care. So my understanding was that it is his own money, because if he's putting in $30 million a month to get this to where he wants it, and I mean, they seemed incredibly determined to me, and I'm sure you all know more about it even than I do. If he is potentially going bankrupt over it, according to him, were willing to do so, then I would have to say yes, that he is probably the one putting that money in there. and I probably could ask him more about it. And once again, I did suggest off the record, so I hope he'll forgive me for sharing this information. But I know that he appreciates the people who believe in him, so I think he will. But yeah, that's my understanding. I mean, he's not holding back. He's not concerned about going broke over this, going bankrupt. He doesn't care.
Okay, let me just jump in back to the COPA case really quick because you asked about it, and that's I want to comment on a few things before I go back to the other subject we talked about before, and that was the fraud. Okay, the mainstream is going to tell you first of all, like you said, investigative journalists or journalists are not allowed to talk about a court case that's already been ruled on, or at least go
Yes,
against it. That's one of the. I just want to recap. That's one of the things you mentioned. But once you're
exactly.
independent, like me, and it sounds like maybe you are now. You have free speech. You could report on what you want. And if you don't, as long as you don't mind the litigation exposure. Now, for me, I welcome litigation. I love litigation. I love it. So I always welcome anybody who wants to sue me. I would appreciate it. Just make sure you have a lot of a legal team or a giant legal team behind you. Please sue me. I would appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. So I'm always open to that. So but my point is that regarding COPA, what happened was it's actually metadata. It wasn't about documents. It was metadata. First of all, he had to
Right.
disclose all the Kleiman case, which was about 2 million pages in documents. And that was a requirement in discovery. And so the attorney's on the other side, and the court says, you need to produce all your evidence and give it to us. And so he says, okay, fine, here you go. I'll give you all this stuff from Kleiman. I have to do it. And a lot of it's kind of screwed up. It was all over the internet, and a lot of bad stuff in there that was metadata, was a mess. But, he's under court order to disclose it. It doesn't mean it's all true. It doesn't mean it's all his. He just got to disclose all this stuff. Here you go. And then because of all the metadata being screwed up, first of all, from that old court case, it doesn't mean he had anything to do with it. They blamed him on it. Second, so they blame him. And metadata is just like, oh, the other thing was the expert that COPA had was a guy who failed to, the whole, the stupid report that he wrote. I talk about it so many times every day. What was the guy's name? Anyway, somebody will tell me the guy's name. But anyways, he wrote this report. And what he said in his report, he's saying, when I logged into the white paper, the whole trial came down to the white paper. It was all about who wrote this white paper. And Dr. Wright gave him instructions and said, when you log in to look at the white paper, you need to go and access it online. You have to go into the system and access it online. You cannot just download the software and view it, or it won't work. It's live. It's a system. He says, I wrote it in the system that is a live system. And the guy would not go in and do it. He says, I'm not doing it. He would not log in. He downloads the software. And when you download the software, the white paper, it doesn't connect properly. It's a live active net system and how he wrote it in. And so he wouldn't do it. And that was basically what it came down to. The guy would not follow instructions to logging in to view the white paper online in the online system, so he couldn't verify, the information that was in there. Second of all, Dr. Wright's witnesses were all compromised. Unfortunately, there was a corporate espionage that had happened at the same time by a guy called Edgar Hansen that had infiltrated Enchain, which is the company that Dr. Wright was chief scientist over, with all the intellectual property over the blockchain space. And he was in charge of Dr. Wright's case. He was managing the case. So he had secured the experts. All these experts were compromised. And so when the expert reports came from the COPA side over to this side, they all agreed. They just literally agreed with the COPA's experts. Oh, we agree. At that point, it was basically almost over, because Dr. Wright had no experts. And when you're in litigation, you have to have opposing experts back and forth. If the experts just agree with each other, the judge doesn't have a lot to rule on, so in the judge's favor. And the last thing about the judge, and I'll stop on COPA, and that is Miller. I helped do a judicial challenge on Miller because we had a space at that time, and we had about 1,000 people on the space. They all signed a freaking petition saying we want to challenge Miller. He was compromised. He was biased. He was meeting with the other side. He was meeting with the other side's attorneys during the trial, and there was pictures of him doing it. So there was a judicial challenge on Miller from Dr. Wright, and then Judge Miller ruled on it himself. He says, "I'll rule on my own qualifications. You don't get to tell me I'm biased. I'm not biased. But what about these pictures? You're meeting with the other side's attorney. You're talking with other people's attorney during the trial. Here's a
Right.
picture of you. What about this? Oh, I'm not. We didn't talk about, but we did talk about Dr. Wright, but it doesn't matter, he says, in his 11-page opinion. So that right there was a immediate disqualification and jurisdictional issue on the whole case. The case is completely voidable at that point, in my opinion, because of that. But there's just major problems with it. That back to you, Kate.
Yeah, actually, Gavin, I've gone pretty in depth with a few people who were at the trial, especially Kurt, on what happened. He was at all of them. One of the first questions I asked was, were there juries in any of these trials, or were they all bench trials? I mean, if it's a bench trial, and my understanding is that they were all bench trials. It's pretty easy to sway a judge's opinion, or of course, many experts' opinions. Why did Dr. Wright not bring in his own experts? Well, that perhaps because he is the penultimate expert. And then back to the metadata, my understanding is that he was when he was in hiding, he actually destroyed quite a bit of it, so to not trace it back to him. And then there was this big dispute. Well, why is it not dating back to the foundation of Bitcoin? Why is it all at 2014? It's like, well, he destroyed it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the book Hero Villain does probably the best job. It's Mark Eglinton's book. Hero Villain does the best job at recapping the events of the 2015, 2016 era, where he took a knife to his neck and committed suicide, or attempted to commit suicide, because of the old Satoshi signing things that were going on. He signed, what, 8, 10 times, and then it was becoming a circus event, and he said no more. And he put a knife to his neck, really did, and basically was killing himself and bled out and almost died. And then they stopped all that. That's really what it came down to. And so, yeah, he at that point stomped on the hard drive and crushed it with all those things in there, because he was done. He was just frustrated. He didn't want to do that anymore. He just wanted to work on the inventions. He didn't want to be a circus clown. He's not me. I love doing that sort of thing. I don't mind going out talking to people. That's just my personality. Him, that's not his
Right.
personality. That's not who he
No.
is. So
Yeah. And I was surprised how relatable he was. I mean, you read his writing and you go, okay, well, I mean, you need to be someone with a strong vocabulary, get at minimum, and a background in writing to just understand even what he's saying here. So when I started just sort of text messaging with him. We were on WhatsApp, and he was sending me voice recordings. And honestly, at first, I questioned if I was talking to an AI bot, because he's so articulate, speaks so fast, and has so many incredible points. I asked him, like, excuse me, but is this a robot? And he was not a robot, and he was actually willing to speak with me on video call. So that was really interesting. I couldn't believe that he went for the video call. If I'd known that I was going to get that opportunity to do the video call, I would have sat down and done a more formal interview. I'm hoping that he'll do that with me in the future. I think he will. I don't think he has anything to hide. And also, back to like the original vision of Bitcoin, like, this wasn't supposed to be about anyone. You all know that. I think we all remember, hopefully a lot of us in this room are old enough to remember what we were all pitched on when it first came out in the press. There's this thing called Bitcoin. It could be one payment system for all. It could be completely decentralized. You can cut out every other payment method. And that was something that people were really excited about. He never wanted it to be about him. And it's still not about him, based on, my my gut instinct. And he's not trying to make it about him. What he's trying to make this about is getting it back to the original vision of Bitcoin. And he's not standing down on, again, I can't emphasize that enough. Like, this is what he really wanted to talk about, was that he's not giving up. He knows that a lot of people are going to try to block him. He knows that I think he predicts I can't say what he's really thinking, but he he knows that he's going to be up against a lot. So I'm not going to say he thinks he's going to fail. He didn't say that at all. But he knows he's going to be up against a lot. I mean, look at the millions and millions of people on crypto Twitter. They're just in this. They're like, I fund my digital nomad lifestyle with crypto. I love it. I like going to the conventions and partying. But you know, that's not really something he's concerned about. And I mean, he's going all in on this. He didn't want this, and it's not about him. In my opinion, it's not about him. But in order for people to realize that this whole thing has turned into, I'm just going to call it a scam, crypto a scam. I'm sorry if that upsets anyone here, because it's not DeFi. It's TradFi too. You know,
I'm not,
uh,
dude.
he's really focused on, you know, just his vision, bringing that back, not making it about him, making it about that original vision. And he's not standing, I've said it 10 times, my gathering, he's 100% dedicated to this, and I'm 100% dedicated to
I
this.
mean,
That's why, I mean, it's not about Dr. Craig Wright, is he Satoshi or not, and he doesn't really seem to care that much about that either. It's about the original vision of Bitcoin, and can we achieve this in our lifetime? Is there any way to break through all this noise? I don't know if there is, but there are
yeah.
people like me who are you know, leaving mass media because it's dismantling itself, and starting to look into stuff that is taking over the world, like crypto, so-called decentralized finance, and asking really basic questions and not getting clear answers. And so when I met Kurt, I was pointed in the right direction. And I think based on just the fact that I've entered, there's people like you, Gavin, there's people like Kurt, and other people probably in this room right now. I'm not. I think that there's still hope for us to restore it in this lifetime. And what's furthermore, I mean, I said to him, well, so if fewer than 5% of the people in the world own digital assets, and you know, 95% of people or more, especially, I mean, here in America where I am, have an incredibly poor perception of crypto and DeFi. They don't really want to touch it. Then maybe there is actually time for us, and time for journalists who are going to be leaving mass media, to get into this and say, hey, it's not decentralized. Let's expose the truth. That's my hope. And that's kind of why I'm continuing on this path. I think that other 95% of the world, and he actually told me when I said fewer than 5% for percent owning digital assets, he quoted it at a much lower number. I think he said like point one. So, you know, that's a, if you look at the world as a whole, uh that's a very small market share of people who could potentially be using this technology for the right reasons. So there's still hope if there's not, if most of the world doesn't want to touch it. They know something stinks. They just can't quite put their finger on it. And I couldn't at first either. But I was, you know, maybe perhaps by Providence directed towards the right people who were able to answer the question. And I
Yeah.
was like, and I just looked at it like this: 95% of the people don't want to touch it. They know there's something wrong with it. And that 95% wants to see, would love to see, and we're really excited to see, to hear about the original vision of Bitcoin. They could potentially become enfranchised if that original system can get the publicity it needs, and we can have journalists going at this, and just bringing it to light. There's going to be a lot of pushback. It could be a several years war. It could be 100 years war. But I actually have hope, just based on, you know, the public perception being so poor, and it being poor, and they're right. Sometimes public perception, you know, they just don't have the education. In this case, they know something stinks, and this is what it is.
Yeah, so let me jump in. This is great, Kay. This is really great to hear a new, refreshing voice on your whole perspective as an independent journalist. So, first of all, a couple of things I want to just comment back on. You know, what he said back in, what was it, 2016, 2017, the first conference, is that his whole mission was to kill off Satoshi. That was the whole mission. That's what he wanted to do. That was 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago now. So that's what he was doing. That was, he's like, I'm killing off Satoshi, and that's what I'm doing. Was very clear about what his goal was in the beginning. So, you know, but to your comment on, I want to just chime in. You said crypto is a scam. I'm really blown away to hear that, because I mean, when I first got into crypto, that was 2015, 2016. It took me Not, it took me, 4 years, five. No, it took me 6 years maybe to figure that out. I mean, maybe more. I mean, it took me a long time to figure out crypto was a scam. I was too naive, I guess. I don't know. Degen, we call it degen economics now, where I realize it now what it is, but at the time it took me so long to see through that. So how in the heck could you possibly push through in just 2 months? You're saying 2 months. You're saying Cardano hires you. Cardano's saying, come to our event. We'll pay you, do an investigate in all this. You want to learn about how it's decentralized. And then when it's not decentralized, nobody can answer questions. And you meet Kurt at the event, apparently. So what happened?
Yeah, I mean, there are people like me, and there are going to be more people coming, Gavin. So here's what happened. So I've interviewed thousands of people in my life face to face. When you're in broadcast TV, you have to go find the person. You can't, now a lot of people are doing like like video interviews, like remote interviews, and it's just getting kind of lazy. But where I came from, and my first story broadcasted in 2007. You had to talk to the person, figure out, and sometimes they would try to avoid you, and you'd have to go hunt them down. And sometimes it would even gets to the point of going to knock on their door at their home. That's something I had to do with a certain corrupt politician who's been removed from office. So here's the thing. Here's how I figured it out so fast. I've interviewed thousands of people. I could tell who's lying because, well, first of all, they're going to try to avoid me 100%. I could tell who's lying because they can't answer questions clearly. I mean, when it's the truth, it's always the truth. Uh, it never changes. They don't change their story. They're not. And listen, people could get nervous on camera. That's completely different. But if you ask straightforward questions and you get straightforward answers, then there's not much need to verify what they're saying much further. The only thing you have to do is get two reliable sources on the record. This is a little bit of a tangent, and then I'll get back to something else you were saying, Gavin. So that the Leaving Neverland documentary on HBO made probably $100 million for the producer and the two alleged victims, Michael Jackson alleged victims. But so why did HBO? But there was no evidence other than these two guys and their families saying, okay, these guys were molested by Michael Jackson as kids, and these two men actually testified that he never did anything to them when they were kids. He just helped them in their careers when they were adults. As soon as he died, they started suing his estate, his corporations, and HBO goes ahead and puts this documentary up, and all they have is two people saying, well, he did this to me. And I mean, any journalist, as soon as I saw it, I knew it was fake, because yeah, they're satisfying that two reliable sources on the record, but everything else about it is bogus. So you're able to poke holes in it. At this point, it's been pulled down, and that case is going to court in February. And they're probably going to lose unless people are paid off. But with 5 billion fans in the world, and even though he's been dead that long, I'm assuming they're going to lose. I mean, they poked so many holes in their story, timeline issues, etc. Now, here's the thing, Gavin. So when this group related to Cardano got in touch with me, they hired me. They and a lot of other groups have told me this as well at conventions. We have a real need for on-air talent. So on-air talent, they didn't hire the Cardano people and others I've spoken with. They're not interested in hiring people to investigate at all. They're hiring people to get on, go on camera and do a little fluff story, a promotional thing, to form relationships with other companies that will go to their live event, that will sponsor them, that will give them money, basically. And that's what I was used for at that event. Now, I mean, I'm willing to do it. I've done plenty of fluff stories for, on broadcast TV. So I did that for them. But I knew I couldn't get answers. So I said, let me dive a little bit deeper into this. Let me fund myself going to these conventions and see if I can get anyone to answer these very obvious questions. When people won't answer very clear questions, that's when you know that it needs to be looked into further. And this is something that the public understands. They
Like
don't like crypto, but they do know when
question.
people can't answer, there's something
So
suspect.
question number one was what? Decentralization? What was the question that was just
Yeah,
stuck?
yeah. Main question, decentralization. I mean, once I figured out the technology, I said, oh, okay, well, I understand the technology. I'm not. You need to be perhaps a digital native or someone who's a little bit tech savvy, which I am. So I understood that. I understand Bitcoin mining. I understand proof of work versus proof of stake. I figured that all out really fast. But I mean, the thing that everyone is like, saluting is decentralization. And that's why I zeroed in on it. Well, how is it decentralized? I mean, who's behind it? I mean, someone's behind it, someone's controlling it. And I looked at the people that I was working with, and nice enough people, but they're in it for profit. And I mean, that's not what this was supposed to be about from the beginning. You look at all of these other blockchains that have jumped off Bitcoin, the original vision, all these meme coins, NFTs. I mean, it's just like kind of it's a bunch of garbage. And then when you look at the evidence, you look at the trials, you speak to people who are at the trials, you see that it's been completely distorted. So yeah, decentralization was the thing I kept asking about, and no one could explain how it's different from TradFi. They just can't explain it.
And how is in your understanding then how is Bitcoin's original vision decentralized compared to let's say Cardano?
Yeah, so I mean, they're taking basically you take investments from VCs, you take investments from heavy hitters, you play the game to make money, and people buy into it. They don't ask questions. Most people don't ask questions. I'll tell you something about asking questions. It pisses people off because I mean, in everyday speech, it's considered sometimes considered impolite. In the world I come from, I mean, you're pushing up against people who don't want to talk to you. We have a saying in journalism, if you didn't piss someone off that day, you didn't do your job. Every single time I've seen, and I learned that early on, I really and I actually became proud in my journalism when I did piss someone off, because those were the stories that the public latched onto. Those were the stories that went viral on the website. In news, what you should be doing if you look at the past few decades of news up until perhaps, the past 15 years or so, there were strong standards in place and people sued. Okay. So if you reported one incorrect piece of information, that's a lawsuit. Um, so everyone's you're asking questions, you're not getting those answers. And the Bitcoin original vision, it's not wasn't supposed to be funded by VCs, by other investors. It wasn't supposed to be taken over by Wall Street. These core developers, who were they? How is that decentralization? I don't understand that. And it's really still something that I'm working on, considering I've only been in this for 2 months. But I'll tell you something. I talked to some of the smartest people I know before I went on, that Cardano trip, basically and I'm no model, but they said, hey, you've been on camera a lot. You can be on camera for us. You know how to interview people and get us sponsorships. But I spoke with some of the smartest people I know, investors, and they all said the same thing to me. Don't get tied up in crypto. Don't get involved in it. And I asked them why, and they all said because it's a scam. Because it's a scam, but why is it a scam? Because it's not decentralized, because it's just, major corporate interests, heavy hitters controlling it, and they're pitching it as this thing that is, I don't want to say like necessarily autonomous, like, hey, someone had to build it, but the Satoshi stayed private for a reason, didn't want to be a figurehead. And now you look at all these other blockchains, they're saluting once again decentralization. How is it decentralized? Like, they're looking for investment. They're looking to be included in the U.S. Treasury. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
TradFi 2.0. I mean, really fascinating to
Right.
hear how you was able to come across this so fast in 2 months. I mean, really hats off to you. And and what was the meeting with Kurt? How did you somehow come across Kurt?
Okay. So I went on this first trip. I realized that, I actually have a passion for speaking with these different projects, but almost every project I spoke with was suspicious to me. Now, not suspicious in that, listen, like free enterprise, like you can pitch your project and profit from it, and hats off to you if you make money, that's great. But when every single one of them is including the word decentralization in an interview, and they're saying, well, the more decentralized, the better, but you can't like this blockchain because it's not so decentralized, but whereas ours is, I mean, I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense. It's just it's a rhetorical competition over who's the most decentralized. Well, is anybody decentralized? I mean, I didn't think anyone was. So I decided to just, fly out to another conference. I took some production gear. It runs very small and light these days. I had to shoot, edit, book, do the interviews, edit, make my deadline, go live with it in the field. So that was no problem for me. I mean, production technology has come so far. I'm like, let me go and talk to some of these projects and see if they're worthwhile, right? I mean, worthwhile for me to get involved with them, to, maybe even promote them, uh, learn about it, educate other people on it. That was what I was looking for. But the main thing I was looking for was what everyone told me I could not find, and that was a subject matter expert. No one gave a damn. My original conversation with this group, they're associated with Cardano, and I'm not trashing like Cardano in particular. I think everyone's doing this. The first thing I said to them when I got on a video call to discuss working with them was, I'm not a subject matter expert in this field. And what they said back to me was, nobody is. And I
Hmm.
was like, nobody is? That doesn't, nobody is. You've got to be kidding me. I've never done a legitimate, and only done legitimate news stories in my life, but I've never done a news story in my life where I didn't pull an expert into it with great credentials and have them explain it and walk me through it, and then I would sort of dumb it down and communicate that in like a video package for broadcast. But yeah, they told me I couldn't find a subject matter expert. So I ran into a production team early on day 2 of this convention, and they said, who are you looking to interview? And I was like, really great projects and experts. And they said, well, hey, we've got a guy. We're actually working with this guy. His name's Kurt. He's an expert. And I said, all right, no, he's not going to be an expert. He's not going to be, because from what I've seen so far, there are no experts. And then I had this conversation with Kurt, and we did it on camera, and none of it is, there are no mistakes. I do have this video. I'm editing it right into Adobe Premiere right now. I know it's like it's about 9 or 10 minutes long. There were nothing's edited out of it. I asked him every question I had, and he answered with full transparency, and that meant something to me. And we spoke a little bit more, and it kind of came to this consensus. I can't speak for him, but I mean, my understanding, I won't parrot him, is that this vision of decentralization is kind of dead, at least at large, in this industry.
Hmm. Well, yeah, in crypto, I guess is the point. It is dead. Casey, go ahead.
I just keep thinking of my initial meeting coming into crypto. I was working with a bunch of influencers like Bitcoin Ben and Bixweir, Jason at 4, all those guys. And they took me to the Litecoin conference and just listening to all those conversations about lightning and everything, I was getting those same intuitive hits that you were talking about. Just it didn't sit
Right.
right, did not feel right. And continuing to work with Bitcoin Ben, he asked me to go to dinner with him at the Four Seasons with someone that I would be working with at Hodlit Wallet business down in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And so I go to this dinner and I'm sitting at the table listening. And I had taken a trading class with JSNIT 4 by a guy named Trader Boss. And I didn't, know that that's who I was meeting. But at dinner, I recognized his voice. And come to find out, this guy is like a billionaire bank owner. And he was the one that I would be working with at this wallet. And long story short, they didn't know that I knew anything about BSV. So I'm listening to the conversation and they're all, talking. And then as soon as I said, "What do you guys think about BSV?" Like everyone's jaw practically dropped. I usually say their assholes puckered, but like they just literally stopped talking. And the trader boss guy gets up and goes out to the balcony, and Ben follows him. And then the wife of Trader Boss even like was so freaked out, she went with him. And so I'm like, okay, I said something wrong there. And this is right when I was finding out about BSB. So I knew I had struck a nerve. And then on the way home, I asked Ben, why did that happen? What's going on? And he said, basically, BSV will never be anything. We have the marketing locked down, all the influencers, all the news. Basically told me that BSV would never amount to anything because they controlled the media around Bitcoin um, for the foreseeable future. And, that is technically what I've witnessed all this time. That was in 2017, 2018, actually, like right after it had forked. And Kurt was also the first person that I talked to coming into BSV. So he's one of our best. Chief historian of Bitcoin is his official title here. But I'm just reliving my experience listening to you, because this is how it goes, especially for women. I feel like our intuition is so much stronger in a lot of ways. We really are seeking the truth of what's going on here and how can we, um, fix a lot of this financial issues that we need for the future of humanity on this planet. So just welcome to the space, man. I'm so grateful that you are here and sharing all this stuff, and that you said there's many more like you coming. If we can help give you a platform to speak at any time with Gavin here, like come join the conversation and bring all your friends.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Casey. I mean, when I came into this, I noticed that, well, everyone has a community. They're posting pics, and hey, I've done it too to get people to keep following me, so that when I do put out stuff, when I do start figuring things out and putting it out there, and yes, I know a lot of people are going to fight with me, so I'll post a few pics too. But I mean, most people's goal, and I'm talking about women, guys too. Well, guys will post. They're looking for a community, right? They have a real need for community. I mean, it's like tribalism to the max. And I mean, hey, sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. It's written into our DNA. But people just want to belong. And what I noticed right away was, well, everyone's on a different team. Everyone wants a community. I don't really care about a community. I'm a journalist, and just doesn't sit right with me if no one's going to be answering these very, very basic questions until I stumbled upon this one. So I mean, I wasn't looking for a community. I'm more than willing. Actually, I'm thrilled to hear that you want to speak with me more, and I'm very flattered. But I'll tell you guys something else. Um, this is so for people who are in crypto, for people who are here on crypto Twitter, for people who think they control the media in this space. I'll say it one more time, and I'll stop repeating myself. Mass media is dissembling itself. So I'll give you an example. One of the biggest TV news stories of the last year was some guy in New York had a pet squirrel, and animal control took the squirrel away, and ABC News in New York did, a great story on it. Whatever, people care about it, they'll do the story. It's not all hard-hitting news. They need people to watch, but they're turning more into an entertainment company. And so is NBC laying everyone off, CBS, they're doing the same, because there's just not money in it. They can't compete with YouTube. So in the case of the squirrel, a YouTube channel took the footage from the ABC report, did their own thing with it, got like 10 million views immediately. Obviously, it was monetized. I have a good friend. His name's Andrew Dimbert. He's an anchor at ABC News. We started in news together and always propped each other up. He's the kind of person who would love this. He called a meeting with the Disney lawyers and he said this. You know, this has happened to some of my stories, but with this squirrel thing, like, I mean, this is a very easy example for you lawyers to look at. Here's the YouTube page. Here's several YouTube pages who have gotten millions of views off this squirrel story where they stole our footage and they stole our reporting. Can you guys at least send a cease and desist? And the lawyers told him no. So, I mean, that's all you need. So that's all you need to know. That's the proof. I mean, other than the mass firings, which you may have read about in the news, I mean, what's going on inside is they're actively dismantling themselves. So as all those journalists exit, I mean, they're gonna be going somewhere. I think I'm not definitely not the first journalist to step into this space and, try to blow the whistle and, once again, in it for 2 months. How much progress have I made? Not a lot. But connecting with a lot of people in this community has given me a lot of hope. The
Just
thing is, in this crypto space, everyone thinks, okay, they have this media control, so there's really nothing we can do. But wait till all of these journalists, and it's not, so newspapers went down a long time ago. Now television news, which people like more, they especially Americans watch 4 to 6 hours of TV a day. They're all getting laid off. They're all going to need somewhere to go. And there's a lot of these people. There's a lot of people who really care about the truth. It's just written into their DNA, written into their character that they're only going to report the truth and they're going to go at it hard and they are going to sound the alarm. They are going to fight with people who won't answer questions. They are going to push back on people who push incorrect narratives. And basically, from what I'm seeing, about all of them are totally bogus. So, I mean, I'll leave you guys, I'm staying in the conversation, but I'll leave you guys on that there's an army of journalists, and I said this to Dr. Craig to get him to talk to me. There's an army of journalists that's going to start looking into this. I mean, this is a global, worldwide, phenomenon, trend, emerging market. But I mean, people are going to start coming at this hard. And I'll tell you another thing: no one else, the world of journalism and production, video brainwashes for good or evil. But when these two worlds collide of so-called DeFi and real production, when those real producers, those news producers, even, people from Hollywood potentially could get into this. They're great with cameras, but so are we. When journalists need somewhere to go, and this keeps getting bigger and bigger, more and more are going to start looking at this, and they're going to figure it out as quickly as I did. So there's a big hope for the truth to take over the media space in crypto. Also, a lot of just like the videos you see that people are producing are not professional, like just from like my eye as someone who shoots, edits, and I've been doing it for a long time. My dad was an editor at ABC News, started in like the 70s, and I just know what good looks like. I know what professional looks like. No one's hired professionals yet. So, I mean, all this media sucks.
Totally.
There
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
well
I've
go.
said.
been
Go ahead,
saying for
PJ.
a long time, I'm waiting for the Project Veritas style videos to come out regarding Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Gate, Bitcoin files, whatever. It's got to come soon because there's got to be people making. That's even how Christian Agerhansen came into the whole, spotlight here in this space. Was he was part of a sting operation video with this attorney Kyle Roche, talking about how they've been using all kinds of illegal litigation tactics to take down their competitors in this space. So it's coming for sure. And just, yeah, I know you've got a thick skin. I
Yeah.
can
So
tell just from listening to your spirit that you're going to withstand the cancel culture that's going to come at you from being into BSB. But thank you for being here and standing up for the
well,
truth.
thank you,
No,
Casey.
thank you.
Thank you, Kate. All right, so let me just chime in here, and I'll go to Crypto Voyager here in a minute. You got your hand up. So, the a couple things. One, just to recap, we got couple breaking news here. Things are one, and we started off with BTC hard fork that's incoming. So, I mean, what that even means is like basically that the nodes of the knots, and that was announced there at the space there in Dallas, Texas. I'm sorry, the event in Dallas, Texas that Brett had been to, where Luke Dash Jr. and the core guys are up on stage and they're taking a survey of the crowd and saying, well, who here is going to mine BTC core? Who's going to mine knots? And one person raised their hand for core, and the rest of the whole room said, we're going to mine knots, which is the fork, going to be the fork chain on BTC. So those guys are splitting up again, and they're still, fighting over block size limits and opcodes. And thanks to Scrypt and myself and others who have out there been championing, BTC should change and expand. Now they're realizing that they were wrong in the first place. So that's all those things are happening like in the next 3 months. The other thing is the fees are raising on BSV 100x potentially, but at the end of the day, that's still 4 zeros and then a 2 in cents. So 4 zeros, dot 4 zeros, and then a 2. That's the cost of a transaction. And when it goes up 100 to 100 sats potentially, and that's only because of Taal, not just a universal, like it's not totalitarianism saying everybody must pay this fee. It's one big miner is saying that, and others are potentially joining in. So that's the latest on that. Now the other thing I want to go back to. So yeah, a couple of things. Let me just go over to Crypto Voyager. You got your hand up, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Crypto Kate, the squirrel story. It became a meme token on Solana called Peanut. Just one thing. So a lot of people made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. But I was still waiting for your answer to Gavin's question on what does decentralization mean to you? You kind of deflected on that one, and so I'm gonna hold you to that one. And Gavin, the 100x fee increase, as I understand it, is just one miner
Todd,
that
it
says
looks like
that
I'm
much.
a little bit early.
As I understand,
I've got you at 2
Gorilla
hours,
Pool
so
hasn't
can we
implemented that.
put you in
And
about 2
the market
hours?
will decide where people
I've got another meeting
with
going on.
whom they will
You
mine.
there?
If the fees are too expensive, the
Todd?
rent is too high. A meme comes to my mind. You just
Sorry,
go to
buddy.
another
Can we,
miner, and
can
if
we
it's too
reconvene in
high
2
and
hours,
everybody's
Todd? I
making
think
too much
I must
bank,
have
then other
confused the
miners will
time.
come in and say, well, they want something from that cake too. It's capitalism at play. Let's see if the 100x fee increase will hold. That's all I wanted to say. So yeah, decentralization. Still waiting for that answer.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that
Sorry,
squirrel coin,
I've
but
got
I'm
to.
not surprised.
Sure.
It's
Hang on, Todd.
ridiculous.
Let me see if I
So,
can
I mean,
quiet
yeah, I
this
mean, I'm here
down.
to learn more about what decentralization
I
is
don't know
and
how to
isn't, but I
do
just don't
that.
see any
So, Todd,
difference
if you can hear
from,
me, let's
your
reconvene in 2
centralized
hours. I
banks
think I've
who
got
have,
the times
let's,
mixed up. I have it
this is a
for
commonly
2
used phrase,
p.m.
a small
Pacific,
cabal
10
of
a.m.
people running it
Hawaii
being
time.
any different from
Can you hear me?
this. So, I
Okay.
mean, that's a question maybe you guys can answer for me.
So that's noon.
Yeah, noon for
Okay.
you. Yep.
Yeah, noon for me.
Okay,
Brett,
sounds good.
take
Talk
it
to you
away.
then.
I know you're
All right,
really
bye.
good at this
Bye.
answer.
Sure. Yeah, I can just say what my thoughts on it are. So what Craig talks about and what I think is one of the most important points. First of all, there's lots of different layers here, but keeping the rules the same. That is basically one of the most important parts to decentralization, because what is true for me but not true for you. If we decide that stealing is wrong, but then we can do it when it's my friends that are doing it, but not when it's you that gets caught doing it, etc. That's the opposite of decentralization, right? Then becomes more about a game about who, what type of influence can you peddle with your various different, insulated people that get to be exempt from the broader general rule system. So true decentralization, besides before we even get into the, how many participants need to be involved, et cetera, and what metrics do we use to determine what's true and what's valuable and stuff like that. We just need to have a rule set that is fixed, and so that, the BSV equivalent of that is the protocol being set in stone. And so I love that you're really delving deeply into this. And the more that you do, I think the more that you'll find these stories along the way. But one of the stories about why BSV even exists in the first place is because when, especially, you were talking about these $30 million that are coming in on a monthly basis and stuff like that. Some of that, yes, is stuff that's being brought into the light, but a lot of that, I'm going to also assume, is going into research. It's going into stuff that may not come to light for 10, 15 years, etc. And we know that for a fact because we've just seen that over the last decade. We've seen how much has gone into some of this research where you have to test it out. You have to, first of all, mock it up. You have to then build a prototype solution. Then you need to test the solution. And Craig often talks about how he looks at biology as his inspiration. So it's he talks a little bit sometimes about him building these autonomous rules enforcers, and that they go about, like, maybe instead of building one way to do something to solve a problem, he might build 120 ways to build or to solve a problem, but let them be agentic operators that are quantifying and qualifying information independently of each other, right? And then he describes how some of those systems will die off and some of those will survive. The ones that are the most adept at interpreting new information, at qualifying it and making decisions based on that, those tend to propagate, and it's the exact same way in biology. And so but the big problem is that if we have he's someone like Craig, or it could be other people, other visionaries and people that they have this expectation of what the network will be able to provide for them as a base layer, and they're putting 2, 3, 5 years worth of money and research and time and expertise into building this out, and then all of a sudden someone 5 years from now on the core team wakes up and says, what, we don't really like this this aspect of Bitcoin anymore. We're going to just close that off and shut it down. Like, no one really uses op push data, so we'll just get rid of it, etc. So that now you don't actually have the opportunity for a open public innovation competitive market where people are testing solutions. What you have is, it's the exact same model as what you might have in a country where property rights aren't protected. So basically, you have a country, let's just pick a random one, where you can just anyone that comes in and squats in the home can just get to keep it for forever, etc. So now you have the problem of, well, that's going to drive capital away, right? Because no one's going to think, okay, let's build and develop these properties, when all of a sudden just bandits can come in and take all of your hard work. Well, it's the exact same thing. If you have the direction, the design of the underlying core layer, like an equivalent example in the internet world would be TCP/IP. Someone coming in and saying, "Hey, today we decided that TCP/IP should work like this." Then you don't have the incentive for capital to come in and say, "Well, here's how we take the base layer of TCP/IP and we build these streaming services like Netflix on top of it and all of this stuff," right? So what the core requirement to have a true decentralization, it doesn't have to do with how widely you distribute the network, etc. At the base layer, I think really what it comes down to is the ability to have an unchanging rule set where if and that's what BSV is, where if a transaction is valid today, it'll be valid in 1,500 years. And and that's the North Star of the network. And then once you have that at the base layer, I think there's other ways that you can open up this model of decentralization. I know Craig talks a lot about, true decentralization is kind of what it does is it takes the power away from money. And so to do that, what you have is you have a true meritocracy where innovation leads the way, where it's not about, whose family, inherited X numbers of billions of dollars worth of, spoils from wars past, et cetera. And now all of a sudden I get to have a larger stake and say in the network because I have, the most weight behind my pen because I represent the largest, familial generational wealth. But what you have instead, that would be like the equivalent of a proof of stake model, where basically I just come in, I already represent 20% of the network. I don't even really care about the network, but it's just something I do for fun because I'm a billionaire and I just like to exert power over things, right? Whereas in a proof of work system, you have much more modeled around a meritocracy where someone, could have been poor, and Craig was. This is partially why he's so defined by this perspective, is because he grew up with basically nothing. He saw that, his mother, who was his inspiration, how she, never took any handouts from the government. She really just, everything was all about how much can she do with what she provides, her creativity, her ingenuity, her work ethic, etc. And he sees that as being, that relationship that his mother informed him of as being really the thing that's missing in the rest of the world, that the rest of the world has come to just rely on these centralized structures of control, that they learned that they need to occasionally be giving out handouts. So we have like the $2,000 tariff handout coming in next, right? But we become like these little rats in a cage that learn, like, every so often a little pebble comes down, the chute that gives me my food, and I get my little drink of water, and then I just run around in my little rat world, in my rat cage. And
Here's a crumb
I don't
for you,
stray
Brett.
too far
Enjoy.
from it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And instead, but there's no self-determinism there, right? We become slaves to the information age, like the media information age, where we just blindly accept that, okay, this is the new normal, and we're going to own nothing and be happy. And what you see, I think this like what Crypto Kate represents, and what a lot of us are drawn to this messaging, is to say, well, like, we reject that, like, we reject it just outright. We've already rejected it. It's not, we wouldn't be here if we didn't already reject that. It's not about whether or not we reject it. It's about, what can we do? And that's why I really love Gavin Spaces, because he really leans into, this idea of the relationship capital, that it's about building these relationships with each other. And, BSV is a version of how to implement this, more interconnected network where we're more self-deterministic. But it's not the only way. It's just a part of a much more beautiful system that is really built. And that's, to me, what the decentralization represents, that we can have, this is my opinion, this is my interpretation, that's yours, etc. But we exist within a framework that supports each other, because at the end of the day, it's our striving for those ideals that actually creates the freedom and determinacy that we all are seeking.
Brilliant. I want to let me respond to that. Kate, one second. I'm going to go to you. I promise. I'll be really short. Five key points here that I want to just recap on, that Brett mentioned, that kind of he did a surface, big picture view on, but there's really some major points about what makes the Bitcoin protocol so beautiful and perfect, and why it is purely decentralized. One, it's true peer-to-peer. It's a true peer-to-peer network. Two, it is truly decentralized at its core. All right, that's the design. When you really get into the node infrastructure and how the proof of work and the validation of blocks operates, it's truly decentralized. Three, it's economically competitive. So, it's a competitive network for these nodes to operate and earn more profit, and how it all operates. It scales unboundedly. It never stops scaling. That's what that $30 million a month that you announced here today going into the network from Dr. Wright, which we didn't know about, is all about. Unbounded scale. Fixed supply. It has to have a fixed supply of the tokens, and then it needs to have a locked protocol. It can never change. The protocol can never change. And then the last thing, the one that BTC destroyed, was the chain of digital signatures when they did SegWit. So they don't have they can't have a valid contract. There's no claim on the signatures of the transactions when you have a BTC meme coin. So those are really 7 kind of elements. But okay, we got 2 guys with their hands up, but let me go first back to Kate.
Yeah, so John, thank you for pressing me on decentralization and also Brett, thank you for explaining it more in depth. I mean, the unchanging rule set was not something I'd considered. When you asked me about it, John, I wanted to say autonomous rules or just mention autonomy, but I wasn't quite sure if that was something that would even be possible. Is that really possible? I mean, is it possible to just put those autonomous rules in place again, let just some die off and let others just the ones that work stay? I mean, is that possible? Can there really be an unchanging rule set? I mean, someone's always got to be in control. That's a big question I'm asking, and I would love to hear some feedback from that on that.
Yeah, definitely invite Kurt up if you want, Casey. He's in the crowd too, and love to hear from him as well. Since we were talking about him behind his back. Over to Vincent Crumbs. Crumbs. Speaking of crumbs, I know Kurt or what was it, Brett? You got a couple crumbs there from the government that you were looking talking about. So Crumbs, Vincent, over to you.
Hey, Kate. Thanks for being here and for reporting on this stuff. I find it just as important as you do. I want to say two things. Firstly, I want to put out a challenge for any devs on the call. I think a Twitter Spaces clone, but using Bitcoin as the backbone, as in CDN, would be really great. I don't know why we're here. This is centralized. So if anyone can build that, I'll promote it. Love to use it. Secondly, to answer your, I want to say what decentralization means to me, and also what I think the confusion has been, and sort of what has helped me understand, come to my understanding of decentralization. And basically, from listening to Dr. Wright and also other people that he educated, I understand that decentralization is widely misunderstood because it means different things in different contexts. Namely, it has a technical definition that's totally different from the legal definition, that's totally different from the political definition. So what are these definitions? The technical definition is about speed and reliability of a network. It describes a network topology called a small world network, or also called a near complete graph. It's a decentralization in the computer science context says something about the number of vertices and basically the number of data
Edges.
centers that are edges in the network that are connected. And that says something about how efficient the network is and also how cheap it is to use as a function of that. So it says something about reliability, speed, and cost, while the the legal definition has everything to do with liability management, limiting risk. So things like separation of concerns, the way that corporations basically manage their liability. And then the political definition has something to do with countries competing between jurisdictions, the political climate of countries, and also the level of society where decisions are being made. If decisions are being made on a national level, or on a regional level, or a local level, or an EU level, that says something about the level of political decentralization of decisions. So this word has multiple meanings that are not directly related, but are used kind of through each other in the crypto community. So nobody really knows which definition is being used, and I think that adds to a lot of confusion. I hope that helps.
Definitely. Back to you,
Helpful.
Casey. Can you mute while you're not speaking? Your mic's echoing. And then back to you, Kate, before we go to Kurt.
Oh no, I was just saying that's incredibly helpful. And there's one other thing that I can share from my conversation with Dr. Craig that may be of interest to everyone here is when he mentioned the $30 million a month to fund, his current vision, what he's working on. And he kind of related it back to, he, you know, signaled to me that, yeah, it's him funding it. because he's willing to go bankrupt in the event it doesn't work, or in the event he runs out of money. He mentioned the one thing that he was really concerned about was cloud space, the cost of cloud space, if that means anything to anyone here.
That's going to be AWS, I would think, but that's probably what that means. But I'd say, yeah, I don't know. The news that she's breaking it, which is new here, is that Dr. Wright, on the record, apparently not off the record, right, Kate? So this
Well,
is
no, yeah, and
okay.
this is, sorry to interrupt, Gavin. I explained this earlier. I suggested to him, if I didn't know if he would be willing to speak with me, I said, "Can I speak with you, off the record?" And he didn't care. He didn't say off the record, needs to be off the record or anything. That was my suggestion. So again, I hope he'll forgive me for sharing this. I mean, he didn't. He speaks a bit in riddles, and I didn't push him on. I didn't approach it. It was just a conversation. I didn't push him on how much are you spending, who's funding it. But I'm just telling you. I hope he'll forgive me for sharing this information, even though I suggested off the record. He did say, this is going to cost. I'm not standing down. I'll go bankrupt to do it. But the reality is, we're looking at. I think he said 20 to 30 million dollars a month, and then he got into uh, cloud space, and also just the speed of transactions was another financial concern for him. But again, like, not backing down on any of it. He doesn't care. And if anyone's interested in this, in him and what he's up to lately, I mean, he just seems to be, as people say, living his best life. Like, I saw him cooking breakfast. So it was at nighttime for me and it was morning for him. And he was cooking this like healthy breakfast. It had like some tomatoes and other vegetables, just in a pan. His family was around. He showed me. I said, well, you're looking very healthy, and you seem to be quite at peace. And you're also, I highly approve of your nutritional choices here. And he said, hey, I've got a whole vegetable garden. And he showed me this incredible, vast, wherever he is in Asia, like basically the sun coming up over this garden. He's just living this like incredible life. And if that's of any interest to anyone, he seems to be really at peace. And that makes me feel like, you know, he's sharp. He's on his A game, and I don't think, like, he's coming off, maybe to some, when I started reading what he's tweeting, I was like, maybe this guy he's sitting around brooding, but not what I saw at all. And I got to see, inside his current home. Again, his family was around, and we talked about, the sacrifice of that the choice he had to make. And you all know, have heard of this, that is it, is he going to keep suing or going to court about, is he Satoshi Nakamoto or not, or is he going to get to spend time with his family and continue trying to build his original vision and give it to the world? So it's the latter for him right now, and I think there's a lot of hope, considering what I saw in him and in his project. But can I just ask one question though? And I hope it doesn't upset anyone. And if it does, that's just how I am. What if, let's say, BSV, and it's let's say Dr. Craig, he pens the white paper. How is he not in complete control of it? And then is that something that makes him such a threat to other people?
Yeah, let me comment on that. We'll go before I go to Kurt here. A couple of things. First of all, that you'll on your investigative journal. Before I answer that, on your investigative journalist side, one of the other cool things you'll be able to look into is who's the biggest, the biggest, greatest living inventor of our time right now. Who has the most amount of patents, and who's made the most inventions. And that'd be a cool rabbit hole to go down, because it'll I think you'll find that there's only one person that is way above the pack on everybody else. There's no one even close, and we've got basically a living Nikola Tesla style inventor in Dr. Craig Wright. Having more inventions patented than any other living inventor right now, going right now. So yeah, that's one cool thing. To answer your question about the white paper. Well, that'll never happen because he's not Satoshi, according to Judge Miller's ruling up there in the UK. And Judge Miller is the high and mighty judge who rules on his own disqualification. And, he makes all decisions and he makes the law. So no matter what anyone else says in the law, he cannot never be Satoshi. Satoshi will never be Craig and in the law. So there may be, political theories or people have their own opinions, but in the law, he can never be Satoshi. So that white paper is not going to be ever going to be his unless there's an American ruling that says otherwise. But the cool thing about the Kleiman case was he still gets to have all the Satoshi fortune. That's the cool thing. So when it comes to the Satoshi coins, well, Craig does get all those. So at the end of the day, he gets all those because of the Kleiman case. But, he's not Satoshi according to the white paper. Over to Kurt. Welcome, buddy.
What's up, Gavin? That's solid. Glad to hear Judge Miller's got you doing his PR for him. So I think really succinctly put. I think to answer Kate's question too about the nature of the white paper and stuff. A lot of like what the COPA trial was attempting to do was disqualify him from having any kind of that personal authority because if he can prove the fact that he is Satoshi in a specific jurisdiction, I think in theory, the issuer of an asset does have certain rights, and so he could turn it into a situation where basically saying, hey, this is BTC is in breach of the unilateral contract that I created and that you have participated in by mining, and some of these other things. And Craig has discussed some of this in public in the past. It's been some time, but he did talk quite a bit about that and say, look, it's the asset does have an issuer. That issuer is Satoshi Nakamoto, and therefore, if you change some deep function of the system but continue to use its name, that's a simple passing off case. That's like saying, hey, here's Coca-Cola, but you're not the Coca-Cola company. Like you don't have the right to use a brand without properly licensing it and all these things. And he argued pretty effectively in public, in my opinion, that BTC is absolutely passing itself off legally as Bitcoin, while it is, in fact, a deviation of the definition of Bitcoin. And, like you could call it a multi-trillion-dollar market fraud by having people believe they are holding an unbroken chain of digital signatures that define what Bitcoin is, when in reality, they're holding private keys that are, an attestation of the ownership of a hash of a signature. And it's like, you're essentially holding a derivative asset. And it's not clear. Like people are not aware that they are holding a derivative asset that may or may not qualify them to then own an underlying Bitcoin. And this is including, like, this would mean even in cold storage, you're holding a SegWit coin in your wallet. You're not necessarily holding the digital signature, and a Bitcoin is nothing else other than the most recent signature in a chain of digital signatures from the time the coin was first mined. And so there's a lot of sort of semantic legal definition stuff that I would love to hear much smarter legal minds than me have a good discussion about, but nobody wants to have those conversations. Frankly, all the conversations around it have gotten pretty toxic because almost everybody that wants to comment on it in the first place is doing little more than trying to bury that conversation because it undermines Michael Saylor and it undermines Larry Fink and it undermines all these other Galaxy Digital and all these huge companies that have built themselves on the fact that BTC is Bitcoin. And it becomes a very complicated conversation. And so a lot of them got together, formed a coalition to say we don't want to ever have that conversation, and they got Judge Miller to agree that having that conversation is not a good thing. So
that's right. And you're rather funny here. So before I want to just share, Kurt, before you came on, Crypto Kate, she was telling us the story about how just within the last 2 months, she got hired by the Cardano team. She wanted to do some research on crypto and look into the crypto scam. Well, it wasn't a scam until, I don't know, recently that she finally got introduced to you by somebody. And then she realized that there weren't
my camera crew. So
Yeah.
I met Kate last week at the Blockchain Futurist conference, and I imagine it was Chad But Chad is my cameraman for stuff in the U.S. and he bumped into Kate and said, hey, you should interview Kurt if you're looking for a Bitcoin expert. And so then we met and had quite a good interview, and we've talked a couple times since. So Kate and I are newly acquainted friends.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. I mean, when I was at the conference, and someone actually asked me what motivated you to just like fund yourself to go to a conference, and I'll just say two things, and and believe me or don't, but it was two things. It's truth, and it's just what I stand behind. It's who I am. It's how I was born, and it's my upbringing. And then the other thing was courage. I mean, every single person told me I wasn't going to be able to find a subject matter expert. Like, I mean, to me, like when I went out with this Cardano group, I mean, I kept saying, well, your production, the videos you would put out would hold a lot more weight if you had, you know, uh, in industry experts saying this project is legit, and here's why this project is as decentralized as possible, or it is decentralized. Your production would hold a lot more weight if you had opinions like that, and you were using sound bites and scripting more correctly. So the production in this space hasn't kicked off yet, and it's going to. I mean, in the US, we have the best produced video producers in the world. We have the best, I think, journalists in the world. They're all going to need a home. And I mean, everyone told me there are no subject matter experts. And I was speaking about this earlier. I just have to say it again. I mean, I spoke with Kurt, and he didn't have anything to hold back, and that really inspired me to just keep digging further.
It's only been a week, like a week. That's crazy.
Yep.
I mean, I when I first saw Kurt, gosh, I remember watching all the climbing trial videos, and I was like, I'll never get to meet this guy. He's way out there in Florida. I was like, I'll never meet him. But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, Kate, you just drove in to meet people, and that's the key. If anybody's listening to this for the first time and they're brand new, go to an event, meet people, shake their hand. That's how it happens. Got to meet people. Over to you, Kurt. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's why I go to these things too. I mean, there's going to be, I mean, at this thing, there's probably, I don't know, 3,000, 5,000 people going through there, most of which, just have bleached hair and bleached teeth and, being South Florida crypto influencers. But ultimately, you meet 3, 4, 5 good people that end up being part of your network. And, Kate was the new one, but there were, the couple of key people that I'm kind of old friends with and some old people to connect with. And there are good people out there. There are good people in the Ethereum communities and other places too that really want to see the tech become something useful. Their opinions or maybe their lack of sophistication as to why something like Ethereum doesn't solve the problems that it says it does. Don't make them a malicious person. Like they're simply people that, hey, like I read Ethereum.com 5 years ago, and I think that's an awesome thing, and I'm here for it, and it takes a little bit of reprogramming to let them know, like, hey, like, yes, you have good ideas. Unfortunately, Ethereum doesn't work for those things all the way, but those are the kind of things that it's worth doing. Go to the conferences. If you're a BSV person and you've got some understanding of why BSV is better from a deep and fundamental space, it's worth it to go to local meetups for probably anything but Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin Core people are like the most like self-psyoped people in the world in my experience, but almost everybody else, like they got into blockchain because they want it to do something. And if you can start there at like, hey, blockchain's a good idea for solving problems, then it's like, hey, like if you really like race cars, like, you don't have to be in this little pedal car. You can hop in my F1 car. Wouldn't that be fun? And, once they see it, they're like, oh, okay. Like my eyes have been opened. Thank you for your help. And it starts to become a very easy conversation after that.
I mean, the
Can I
conversation.
just?
Yeah.
Sorry, Gavin, you go.
Go. Yeah. I have more footage coming out from the London Blockchain Conference. I did a pretty good I mean, a bootstrapped little media job down there in London blockchain, putting out slowly on camera stuff, and some of the conversations that Kurt and I had with people there, I mean, that I had myself, and then the conversations that Kurt and I had with people were just so freaking, it was exhilarating to talk to these TradFi people, and for them just to have actually open-minded TradFi people, actually wanting to learn, truly just wanting to learn, like, why is this legit? Is there anything legit here, like this crypto market? It just seems like TradFi. That's what they're thinking. And they're like, no, it is just TradFi.
Yeah.
So I mean, Kurt, we had some great conversations with people about that. They're
Oh, we did. Absolutely. I mean, we were talking to people that work at the Bank of England. We were talking to people that work at, Lloyd's of London and some of these places where, I mean, literally the very definition of deep tradfi. And, they say the same things. They see the systemic inefficiencies and the opportunity for malfeasance. And a lot of these people, like, it's something when I was younger, it was, I was like, ugh, central bankers and tax collectors and all these people are just like fundamentally bad. And like, just really isn't the case. A lot of people, they make a decision at some point between like 18 and 22 years old as to what they want their career to be. And, they realize in their 30s or 40s, like, man, I don't know. Am I the bad guy? Like, have I joined the Borg or something? And like, a lot of those people open their eyes and realize, like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take what I know. I'm gonna go do something better with it. And that's why we have whistleblowers, and that's why we have people that leave big companies and go start disruptive startups that do something better. And really, we're starting to see that a lot with people that work in TradFi spaces, and they see it. They see the, like, oh, okay, we're talking about, not just a good idea. We're talking about like 1,000x efficiency that then spills over into, oh, hey, if the economy could grow 1,000 times easier, I mean, that's great. I'm gonna hop on that train and see how far it takes me.
over to you, Kate.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, like, to Kurt's point, so like my first event was definitely Bitcoin mining core, and and a lot of people from TradFi, like Fidelity Investments, or a number of other people, politicians, stuff like that. That conference, still met a lot of very nice people there. But did not get any answers, and this was me, like, so this is me just coming from like a journalistic standpoint, trying to get answers, but also I was just trying to get answers on, like, well, what is the technology? What is everyone so hyped up about? How is it so different? But then also, why are the TradFi people here? Well, it's because they know what's going on. And
Mhm.
then another thing about about conferences, they're, I think it seems like they're all very different. A lot of them, everyone's just like, it kind of, it sort of gives you the ick to see people. I don't listen. We've all you're getting drunk in your 20s, early 30s, 40. You want to get drunk, fine, go ahead. But I mean, people are just there to party, like drinking, like not everyone drinking the Kool-Aid, and like it's just going right over their heads, and
Yeah.
they don't care. I mean, maybe it's just not in everyone's disposition to try to learn, and they don't have a love of learning. I mean, that was actually at both of those conferences, and those are two completely opposite events, like Futurist, and then it was the North American Blockchain Summit I went to. Completely opposite events. No one trying to learn anything. And but that being said, there are definitely some great people there. Do they, are they trying to make a profit? Like, probably on their project. Do they are they're maybe they're just not thinking about the original vision of Bitcoin. Maybe they're just thinking about uh
Yeah.
their profit. That's okay. They could still be good people. But I would say this, like, this is at the end of the day going to turn into some kind of media war. Not at the end of the day. I think it's coming sooner than we think. It's already been militarized by like influencers, X, others who are invested in paying these people various blockchains. They like pay influencers to just like post a picture and like their ticker, what have you. But just from, come, I think that there's a lot of room in the production space for people who really want to learn more about this, and there's room for it, and we need it.
Hmm. No, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's unfortunately that's how it is in a lot of places too. Like I think about the guys who are on stage talking about like Doganals tokens, and they're all just
Oh
weird
no.
influencers, and like, I
Wild group. They don't give
right.
a
Well,
damn. Like, I mean,
no, they
I've
don't
never
care.
seen. I'm gonna be a little judgmental for a second. Like, these groups, like the Dodgeral dogs on Solana, like they're like a bunch of influencers. Like, you wanna just show up and take pictures, like that's great. I mean, I hope someone's paying you for that. If that's your goal, that's fine. But it's just creating this culture of ignorance that's really dangerous, not just for people involved in the space or trading in crypto, but for the world at large. And I mean, that's kind of like
Yeah.
why I'm here. I'm still interested. I'm sticking with it, and I'm talking to as many people as I can.
No, really, really good stuff. And honestly, it would be the same thing if we went to like a real estate investment summit. It'd be the same kind of people. Like, all right, here's the alpha. Here's how to do some crazy. Like, there would be a lot of people with a lot of crazy ideas. Like the problem with crypto in specific is that it requires so little actual like, a kid in the third world can create millions of dollars out of nothing just by putting together a nice website and putting together a few social media accounts and having a few friends that all kind of pretend they're all super pumped about the thing. And if you just get it to take the right kind of get some legs behind it, all of a sudden your coin that took you 3 minutes to create might print 50 or $100 million that you can split between all the people that got in early. And like, it's funny because I remember back in like 2017, I can't remember what the project was, but there was a picture where there was like a board of directors and it was the same guy, but with like different haircuts. And then on one picture, he
Yeah,
had glasses on
it
and he
was
was the
called
CEO.
Senta, I think it was. Remember Senta?
It-
That was it.
that rings a bell.
That was
Yeah.
it. They made a
And it
movie
was like
about it.
six photos of the same guy in different outfits. And it was like, that was peak cryptomania. In fact, I think the 2017 run up was the biggest as a percentage. It was the biggest run up in the history of all blockchain stuff. So like ETH on that cycle, ETH went from like, I don't even know, $50 and went up to like $1,500. BTC went from under $1,000 up to 20,000. And then there was like all these ICO projects. So it was like, it was the craziest era, at least the craziest era that I saw. And but like there were also the people that were super Machiavellian about it, who were just like, well, yeah, of course it's a scam. Like, of course there's no real value there. But it's like it's like going to the casino and you're there to play cards against the people that have never played before. Like, you're just there to take their money, and they're there to voluntarily give you their money at the table. And it was like, man, this is sick. This is such a crazy microcosm of narcissism and toxicity.
Yeah, the
But
most recent one we saw, Kurt, was the Hawk Tua coin. That was a great front run that they
yeah,
did. That was a good one.
yep,
And the big
that
the
was
big
it.
one right now is BTC. As you see with Saylor,
Yeah,
he's saying everybody hold. He says hodl, while he's just sold
you're right.
3,000 BTC. That's an
Yep,
illegal. That is illegal to do that.
yeah. Oh, it's insane. Totally crazy. But and I saw a clip of him today where he's essentially like he's saying the same thing. He's just like, hey man, the math just is what it is. It's going up forever, and he's talking to people. I don't even know how he does it. I mean, like, you just have to be completely, and like, he's not a fool. Like, I could say he's an idiot, but I know he's not an idiot. And so, then it really leaves one option. Like, he is a malicious actor in the space who wants your damn money. And because he's made a lot of people some money, those people are like, hey man, I got to defend this guy. This guy made it that I was poor last year, and now I'm a little less poor. So I mean, this guy's my homie. And that it perpetuates itself. Like, as
Right.
soon as you've made some money, now you're in on it. You're part of the grift. So
Yeah.
yeah.
If I could just jump in, I think that so I think that, like, the whole industry revolves around narratives and like control of the media in the space. And I think there's a strategy. There's like a battle plan to, if you really care about bringing the original vision of Bitcoin back and seeing it happen in our lifetime. I would do it like this. So this is my opinion. Okay, so if you can't beat, there's two tracks. If you can't beat them, join them. Go to the conventions, look at the projects, report on them. You know, ask real questions and just report the facts. If it promotes them, that's okay. Stay in the media space in the niche. But then there's the second track, and I think this like blows the other one out of the water. Because do you know, like you guys, and I just getting into this, no one gives like no offense to anyone here, no one gives a damn about crypto Twitter. For the most part, it's just like people who are on here. It's like for a lot of them, it's their whole life. Um, but for everyone else to see that this vision, like, to fast track it, something needs to happen in mass media, or some incredibly compelling piece of content needs to come out, like a documentary, for example. And a really good one, a story that people can really relate to. I think Dr. Craig's
I
story is
wonder. I
phenomenal,
wonder. Yeah.
and everyone on earth would be rooting him on,
Shoot.
and they'd buy it because they don't like the public perception of crypto is so poor. I mean, yeah, they'd be rooting for this guy. He's like, I mean, in my opinion, just talking to him, words are words, but I mean, from his disposition, he's like a living angel. Like, someone needs to do something mass media wise, or distribution wise. Someone needs to step in to fund a real production on that second track. On the first track, keep going to the conventions, reporting, you know, keep the attention of the base, but also someone needs to like just throw down some money for a great production. That's what the people not on Twitter, the people who don't like it but like the original vision of Bitcoin, would want, and that would capture their hearts. It really could fast track the whole vision.
Yeah. Well, luckily, we do have something of the sort is on its way. So I've been involved. God, it feels like 4 years now. I think we've been working on a documentary. Part of the reason it's been dragged out is we wanted to tell the story through the court cases. Like the court cases is like the centerpiece of the storytelling,
Right.
and so that sort of dragged out, and then ultimately became not the best way to tell the story. But I can't really speak much due to NDA and other stuff. But the final product, at least as much of it as I have seen, is fantastic, and it's currently being negotiated for like distribution rights and things. So I expect 2026 to be the year that people finally get to see the story in 4K and told by the right people. So.
Yeah, I think that could blow the lid off it. The first thing I said to Dr. Craig was, "Were there cameras allowed in the courtroom?" And he said yes. And then I said, but then he told me that the footage is all gone.
Interesting.
Is that something that you guys have heard about or found?
Um, I'm actually not sure. I don't know the details of it, and it depends on the trial too. Like
Right.
Kleiman trial had no media. Like they literally checked our phones at the door. So I mean, all of my note taking was done pen and paper for almost 2 months of sitting in court, which was a nightmare. But the the Granith trial up in Oslo did have camera, but CoinGeek was not allowed to film. So that was owned by Bitcoin Magazine, if I recall, and they were all like villains essentially. And then for COPA, that was broadcast via some link, but I don't think that there is at least there's not a public recording that I'm aware of. So I don't know. I don't know the status of any of that media at this point, but
Just black
essentially,
market. There's black market recordings of that one.
yeah, I've definitely seen some interesting remixes and I've seen some clips and stuff. But as for like unadulterated, like uncut version of this stuff, I don't know if any of that exists anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, being able being able to visualize it is what like a great documentary makes or a great movie makes. And I was just hoping that maybe there would be some footage, but I was surprised that they allowed cameras in any of these court cases, because I think that, they went into it assuming a certain outcome, or,
Yeah.
pushing for a certain outcome. I was surprised to hear him say, yeah, there were cameras in there, but he told me that it has been destroyed.
That could be. So the COPA one was like an official court stream. So I don't know how that works. I don't know how long they keep record or if they keep record of that at all. And then in US court, you cannot film unless it's a very specific situation. So that is to
It's
be
the
expected.
judge's call. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in Norway, however, Norway was so like kitschy and quaint by contrast. Like it was literally like the security was really slim and just the whole thing was very like, oh yeah, sure, set up the camera over there. And it was just very I don't know, very different by contrast. It also didn't have like a sort of an official courtroom feel. Like American courtrooms and British courtrooms are, covered in flags and really like this is serious federal courts. I mean, the judge is sitting whatever 12 feet up in a giant chair, and in Oslo it was like we all kind of got like really simple chairs and little like particle board desks, and it was like sitting in a middle school classroom or something. So it felt very just very inaustere by contrast.
Yeah.
But that was also the one that allowed, like, there was media but not us. Like CoinGeek could not film, so we had to rely on Bitcoin Magazine, who were essentially there to root for the other side. So it was
Yeah, I understand
pretty
that.
pretty unpleasant. Yeah.
Yeah. For
I
climate,
mean,
I just
even
got.
Vitalik Buterin hates Bitcoin Magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they canned his ass a lot of years ago now.
For
Well,
climate,
and Kurt, tell
go ahead,
her
Casey.
about the passing off case and what happened with that.
Um, so I actually don't remember the sum total of it. I remember that it went to trial, but I
The passing off case, what happened is that Craig had the COPA case ruling come out. He fired all of his attorneys and he brought the passing off case on his own merit. And it was about the Champagne passing off case. That's what Judge Miller found him in contempt for, is because then COPA's attorneys filed a motion for contempt on Craig for filing that case. And then Judge Miller, without jurisdiction, he ruled again on a case that he had no authority on, which was the passing off
right.
case. And he dismissed it without it being ruled on. That's ultimately what happened with it. And in summary,
Yeah, it was no. He broad brushstroked a whole bunch of things. It was, frankly, it was outrageous. And as an American with some experience in American court, like I'm, sitting here like screaming inside, watching the way that this all went down. It was very, very weird. I mean, like super Orwellian watching UK court. Like it was the most. Honestly, it made me not want to step foot in the country. I was like, man, just even now adding to it, like the way that they are about social media, and like, if I start saying like, hey, UK first, maybe the UK should worry about the UK's interests. Like, I mean, they're throwing locals in prison for that kind of thing. So like, man, as an American, I'm going to show up as Mr. Libertarian critic of all power. They're going to arrest me at the border, but it was wild. Their court case really, or just their whole court system, just felt so silly. Like silly on one hand, but also like it was like a humiliation ritual on the other hand. It was literally like, oh man, you're gonna go in there and swear an oath, and then they're just gonna like degrade you in public until you until they just decide to rule that you are no longer allowed to live.
One of the best comical parts about the COPA case, crypto case, that I'll recap, that's so freaking amazing, is the very end when the contempt ruling is coming out. So Craig, he files the passing off case. This is after he's found out not to be Satoshi, and Judge Miller says, okay, you can't bring any more cases about Satoshi. So he brings a passing off case, not as Satoshi, but as a miner, saying, look, I've been harmed. I've been mining a lot of Bitcoin. and I was counting on the protocol staying the same. These people changed the protocol. I've lost a lot of money because of it. And he brings it under those grounds, not because he was Satoshi, but then COPA, they file a motion saying he said he was Satoshi again, and they want to find him in contempt. So they bring the motion. He's going to be brought into court. He says, well, can I appear by phone? They say, no, you can't appear by phone. You have to come into the courtroom in person in London. So I'll never forget it. I don't know if I've shared this before, and I have a call with Craig, and I was really concerned because I was reporting on the case every single day, doing recaps and videos on it, right? So I'm like, I have a call with him. I'm like, Craig, I'm a little kind of concerned, they want you to go in person, and I really think it's a setup. I mean, calling you're a big boy. I know you're not represented by attorneys anymore, so you got to make your own decision here. But, it doesn't look good. Okay, it doesn't look good. They want you in person, and the way this judge is operating, in America, what they'll do is they'll put shots in you and then put you into a 1538.5, call you a crazy hearing. He's a nutcase. He's insane. Put him in a bed and lock him to a chair. He might hurt himself. That's what they'll do to people out here. So, be mindful. Just hopefully that doesn't happen. So anyways, he just flat out doesn't show up at the hearing. Everybody goes and they have a special courtroom in a whole different building. And we were in London. We toured the freaking courtroom just a couple weeks ago in London. It was really cool. They had the main courtroom where he had this trial. Then they had another special courtroom, like the big boy courtroom, I guess they call it. And they had the contempt hearing over there. And everybody from BTC flew in. They had Tufty the Cat and Arthur Van Pelt. They all flew in over the world. And they were all going to see Craig go to jail. That was the big thing, the big push. And they're all in their packed house. And they even had the judge dress up in a costume where he wear the wig and he wore the black robe. And I went there in London just a couple weeks ago. I said, well, why did they get all dressed up for the contempt hearing? And then they weren't dressed up at the other hearing. And he couldn't answer that question for me. He didn't know. And even the attorneys were dressed up in masks and costumes and makeup. And then Craig didn't show up. Everybody's sweating down. It was so hot. They had 115 degrees. The air conditioning wasn't on. So
I remember
sweating.
The air conditioning was broken.
So the judge's makeup is coming down his face, and the makeup's coming down on the attorney's face. Everybody's just masked, and Craig's not there. And they were so pissed off, like that he didn't show up. It was just like, this is bullshit. He's not here. And then they basically said, okay, Craig, just call it on the phone. And he called in a few days later, and they kind of forgave him. They did a sentence. They didn't find him in contempt. At the end of the day, he was what is it? Anyways, it was comical. The end of it.
It's bonkers. It's so absurd.
Yeah, I wish that footage was still out there and available to be cut up and shown visually. But there's still a lot that can be done. I mean, so when I was speaking with him, I know there's been a book, and I'm in the process of reading it. But he didn't say he wants more books. He wants more documentaries. But I did ask him about that stuff. I was like, what about books? What about documentaries? Because, and roll your eyes if you want, but I've had, when I spoke with Kurt and I posted a picture with him, I had a bunch of people slide into my DMs and tell me this whole story. So I know the whole story. Like I'm sure I could get more into it. I'd like to see it visually, but roll your eyes. Back to what I was saying. Roll your eyes if you want, but I think we have kind of like a gladiator story here, like a Count of Monte Cristo story here. That it really could just blow the lid off public perception of what this is. And I don't think he's out to glorify himself, but maybe I think it could really change everything if you just get that one good piece of media that everyone sees. And I actually think that these major platforms like Netflix and Hulu, the only crypto stuff I've seen on there are there was a crypto scam, there was a crypto scam, there was a crypto, and people are digesting that and loving it and saying, hey, did you see that? That crypto scam doc, yeah, there was 10 of them. So I think they're actually open to negotiating distribution rights for a story like this. And I mean, hey, I may be ignorant. This probably been discussed before, but I think that's the winning strategy.
I'm under NDA as well. So, I would love to share more about that what your ideas are. I know Curtis too. So,
right.
I just can't. Yeah.
Hey,
All
we'll
I can
talk.
say are those are some good ideas, Kate.
I mean, it's the obvious idea.
For sure.
So
Yep.
it's the obvious idea.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely good ideas. So brilliant. I want to wind down here. And let's see. Do we have anybody else, Casey, that is on stage that we want to have say a few things? I don't see any hands up. Do you?
I think everyone's gotten a chance to speak. I would like to point out something that it is your birthday today. So
It
Oh,
is my
happy
hey.
birthday.
birthday.
Gavin's turning 35, huh?
Wow.
All right.
I look 35. I look 27 to be honest. So that's fine
There
by
you
me.
go.
I ain't
Yep.
changing. And I didn't change my freaking picture from the 90s on my thing yet, Kurt. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good man. With
Yeah.
with total impunity. Like, here's my photo.
Here's my photo from the 1990s. Okay.
I
That's just.
love it. It was my best day.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Gavin.
Yeah.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday to you, man.
Thank you,
Seriously.
Kurt. Really do appreciate it. And,
Enjoy
you
the
know,
day.
I will. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for jumping in, and we will wrap it up. And I just want to say, in closing thoughts, and I want to just kind of go around here before you jump off, Kurt. We'll do closing thoughts, and that is just,
Yeah.
I mean, go to an event. I mean, we go to an event, like, it sounds like just you or Kate was able to explode onto the scene and get information because you met people. That was your thing. You met people. You know how to talk to people. You started going in, and as opposed to me taking 5-6 years to figure this whole industry out. It literally, I was like, just like watching on the sidelines. Oh, crypto's great. It's great. I thought it was great, but I didn't really realize the scam for a long time. So, but going to these events is how you learn and you meet people. And so that kind of my closing thoughts. But yeah, over to you. Maybe Casey, why don't we go to you and we'll go to Brett, John, and Crypto Kate, and then end with Kurt, or maybe we end with you, Brett, on this. So, Casey.
Just thanks everyone for being here. I'm very happy to welcome you to the space, Crypto Kate. Thank you again for everything you're doing to raise awareness. And I'm very happy your intuition led you to Kurt and getting the truth out there. So we didn't get to hear from Rui today, but thank you for hopping in for a little bit. Maybe next time we have a space, I'd love to hear from you. And just everyone have a wonderful weekend. Gavin, again, happy birthday.
Thank you for the birthday wishes. Over to you, Kate. And by the way, yeah, check out Kate's profile. It's katemosso.com. Looks like you've got a great story there about when you're a journalist there at Fox and doing all those stories in New York. So are you in New Jersey?
No, I'm actually in Denver, Colorado, but native Long Islander.
Oh, okay. So January, let's see, early to mid-January. Right now, I'm still finishing the details, but it looks like I'm going to be helping to host an event there in Boulder, which
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh,
So
we should definitely hook up.
plan on
Brett,
that.
we're still looking for a venue, Brett. You're in that
No,
neck of the woods and Crypto
I'm working
Kate.
on it with Brett. So yeah, we're
Okay.
we're gonna make it happen.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, but go ahead, Kate. Your closing thoughts. We're really glad to have you.
Well, wow, I didn't expect to be embraced with open arms, especially when everyone else is telling me to shut up. Um, but I'll just leave it on this. There's a lot of tactics that have not been employed to educate people on what is possible and what the vision is and how it could potentially be restored, not in 100 years, but in our lifetime. And those tactics have not been deployed yet. And my last closing thought is I think I was pulled into this by Providence.
I mean, as a Christian myself, that's definitely why I'm here. And I know that we try not to go into too much of the religious stuff, but I love to hear Kurt's perspective because he's also a Christian too. So, love to hear your closing thoughts, Kurt. Excuse me.
Hey, yeah, no, I think, yeah, I mean, it's Providence is a key thing in these kind of things, but we got the right ideas, we've got good people, we just need to keep moving forward. It's uh, a thing that you'll get your football coach to say, but hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, and the other people that we're competing against in the space, they're just not doing much. Like they have, they'll talk about how, hey, it's Bitcoin rewards people that are patient, and that kind of thing. And it's like, guys, you have the fastest and highest performing asset in the history of the world. So talking about patience is pretty silly coming from people that essentially almost entirely got rich by accident. But we have the best technology, we have the best people. We could use more people, but what we don't want is lots and lots of fools and scammers to show up. Like I'm so proud to be part of the community of people that kind of see through the nonsense intuitively. And then, just looking at the people in this crowd, I see people, I see half a dozen of you within, 10 seconds of looking that have a great startup idea, have an MVP out there, have a community that is interested in your app or your game or your tooling or whatever else. And like that kind of stuff, it pays off over time. If you just consistently show up and make the right decision, a small group of people can win anything. And so, my personal catchphrase is be good to each other, because, especially at this stage, like we're a relatively small group of people. We need to continue to take care of each other and be good to each other. And I think this all plays out for the best in the end.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kurt. Over to John Calhoun, and then we'll close with Brett.
Yeah, guys, thank you for having me. Kate, thank you for sharing your story. I think we all have the ability to contribute to the world that we want to see with truth and transparency, without middlemen and gatekeepers, right? Whether you're a journalist or a user or a developer, I think we all have the ability to contribute to that and create that world. And I think we've been doing a great job, and let's keep it up.
It's all about that no gatekeepers, John. A peer-to-peer transaction. That's why I'm here. Freedom, because freedom is about us transacting with each other with no middleman, not off-chain, not Jack Dorsey, not nobody, just us. That's pure. That's freedom. That's liberation. So thank you for that. All right, Brett Banfe, closing thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Well, I want to just say, if you are in the Colorado area, no, not putting any pressure or putting you on the spot, but we are having our first ever Mountain Citadel group gathering here at Shreddy's Tacos in Boulder, Colorado at 6 p.m. tonight. Matt Archibald is organizing that from Colorado Springs. So he drove up here. I know he's in Boulder area right now, and we're ready to get that started. It'll be probably a small gathering, maybe about 6 to 10 of us or so, but we're looking to expand those and maybe do those once a month. We are looking, as Gavin indicated, to host an event here in January. We're looking at maybe hosting it directly at the CU campus, maybe in some partnership with some local university students. So that's really great. And I just want to sort of echo a little bit about what everyone said. First of all, say thank you so much, Gavin. In the beginning, you mentioned that's not like you think you have all the right ideas, but that you are trying to learn, and that is exactly how I feel. I just get really inspired and charged up when I'm on these spaces with you. And the thought that came to my mind as I was thinking of a last word is Buckminster Fuller, someone I really look up to, had this notion of the trim tab. And he said to call himself a trim tab. And the trim tab, when he described what its function was, is, when an airplane goes to lift off, it has that little slot on the back of the wing that sort of bends down, and it creates a little bit of additional resistance. And it's it might bend up, I kind of forget, but it's the additional resistance that makes it harder for the air to go over the wing than it is for the air to go under the wing, that actually creates the lift off the runway. And so he described that, do we as individual people have the potential to pivot the entire globe and the direction of humanity? Maybe not all at once, but what we can be is we can be our own versions of the trim tab that is creating additional resistance against things like, truth machine, or like truthiness, and truth controls and centralized controls around information sharing, and what isn't factual information, and the media manipulation, etc. We can continue to create that resistance. Meanwhile, as the peer-to-peer nature of of information sharing on our small world network continues to expand, and ultimately that does create the incentive for a complete shift in the entire history of humanity. And I think that we are those trim tabs. So I want to thank you very much, Gavin, for hosting the event. I do look forward to more of these.
Likewise. Thank you, Brett. All right. Thank you, everybody. Great to see you, everyone. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. I got a YouTube channel. It's blowing up, and I'm going to post this recording there because I didn't record it here, but I did record it on the back end. So I will post this if you haven't seen the whole thing on there here in the near future. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Kate, for being up on here for the first time. We'll see you guys.
Thank you, guys. And let me know about any events in Boulder. I can probably make all of them.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Casey.
Yeah, I'll send you the details.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Sounds good. We'll see you at the top. I'm going to end it there. Later.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you, Kurt.